welcome to the Nen Show Podcast. Fresh start, new year, new post-time skip. So this is your host, Craftsdwarf, with my co-host, Mathwiz.
Yes, that's the reason why we had the delay on this episode, was to really sell the time skip. Did you get a new character design, Craftsdwarf? How was your time skip?
Oh, I wish I did. That would be perfect. Well, because I was going to say, because yes, we were supposed to do it last week, but scheduling it the day after Christmas didn't work out. Well, because I had to work on that day and I couldn't get... Oh, I maybe could have gotten my schedule changed around, but I decided not to because I also got sick, which means, it would have been harder to record, and it would have been less good. And then you had scheduling issues. Well, no, it was just the one scheduling issue. We couldn't do it on Christmas, I guess. For understandable reasons. Yeah, let's Mathwiz, stay away from your family and let's talk about One Piece for 4 hours on Christmas. Man. So yeah, sorry about the delay. Things happen. Anyway, comments. I know I have a couple to respond to because I'm going to be talking about certain ideas for the rest of my life. Not that I was completely right on every single point. And it's going to be a tough sell when I do the video. So I'm glad I'm getting my mistakes. I'm glad I'm failing now. I tried and now I failed. So now I can, do better next time. Anyway, do you have comments to respond to?
I thought I did, but now I can't find them. What did I do with them?
All right. So yeah, you go ahead and find those. So firstly, Hulk Perez sort of caught me on a bit of a contradiction because I'd said before that Luffy shouldn't have tried to save Ace because he failed, but that was a sort of idea I had a while ago because I recognized Luffy's failure, and the conclusion I came to that was oh yeah, he shouldn't have tried, but that's completely incongruent with the themes of the whole series because the whole idea is if you have a goal, try for it, because it's that's where maybe you'll succeed, and even if you don't believe or didn't believe you might beforehand. So so it's I was trying to and I definitely even reading it and talking about it, I had I don't know what it is, but you get this feeling of the sinking feeling, it sort of that I because I had this before, both when I said when reading and talking about it, that maybe I was wrong on some point, and I think that was because I was trying to rationalize two things that old idea that I'd had and information I've only more come to understand recently. So yeah, good catch there. Did you find a comment yet, or shall I keep going?
I swear I thought I read these comments, but I'm not seeing anything marked, so forget me, I guess. I'm sorry.
Sad. Because these are all about Sabaody. We're still stuck on 3 episodes ago. And that's the thing, is I'm probably going to be talking about for the rest of this series because it's it's a core idea that's been built up since chapter 1. So yeah, because I definitely went a bit too far with the hypotheticals, I think, but the point of doing the hypotheticals was to show here's how the story could have worked and also been thematically consistent, because one big thing is the supernovas. I mentioned it last time, is they all fought against Kizaru and the pacifistas, and they all made it, all the supernovas, including Luffy, made it to Sabaody with the intent to go to the New World, and only Luffy didn't make it. So all the supernovas fought against they didn't fight Sentomaru, but they did fight the pacifistas and Kizaru, who's even as bad, he's the big threat everyone was worried about, but they all fought him and they all made it. So it's none of them showed weakness or desperation. Though I only came to another realization recently. I might save that one though. But Zmod mentioned because he was pointing out, if they beat Kizaru and Sentomaru and the Pacifista, more Marines would have come, and I don't actually think that's necessarily true, again, getting into hypotheticals, but, Garp said that, we can't fight two legends at the same time. They didn't want to go after Rayleigh because, they were busy building up with Whitebeard. Hypothetically, if Kizaru got beaten in that conflict, that would be a huge blow to the war effort, because, they just lost a fucking admiral, so it's they can't necessarily, if all they had to do is, survive the one conflict, and I think they would have been okay. And also I don't really agree with what he said about how, they were, they could only lose in that situation because it was the whims of fate. But, I don't think that's consistent with how the series looks at fate. which we will talk about this stretch of chapters actually, because we have a fortune teller who comes up with a prediction, and that's interesting. So yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah, honestly, and I think I've like there were some other comments like that were sort of, and there's but like I was just arguing about it on my Discord, so I think I'm a little tired out of that conversation. So it's not like I already addressed my one contradiction. Like there's like again, there's also other ideas with both the Ace thing and the Subodhi thing I didn't mention because I didn't realize at the time. So I think I'm just gonna save it for the videos that are going to be scripted. They're going to be legible. Like I mean legible like what's audible is or yeah that's a I guess kind of what I mean. I'm just I was doing that conversation for like 40 minutes, so I'm already tired, and I've been discussing One Piece all day is what I'm trying to say. So did you find any more comments, or no? You said we're good. Okay, so we're good. So yeah, sorry I couldn't talk more. Like it's very discussion worthy, like I said. So yeah, it's we'll keep going. With more discussion, more, because this stretch of chapters, like I'm very curious to see how you felt about it. So, or do you want to spoil me on your thoughts? Because this is when One Piece gets bad, quote unquote.
I hated this arc. It was terrible. The post time skip is a real big letdown. I'm just kidding. I'm in too deep. I can't.
You love One Piece too much already. Yeah, well, because like especially I'm curious about because. The war was, I think I might have mentioned this last time, but in case I didn't, the war was really hype. Because, like, the thing with a lot of, like, long-running things, like this also happened to Steven Universe to an extent. Whereas with One Piece, it was the Paramount War, and with Steven Universe, it was, like, the Season 1 finale, where it's, like, the series got a lot of attention, and people getting into it. And I think part of that was because it was the perception of things happening. Because it's, like, with a lot of the early arcs, like, obviously we just read them, and lots of things happen, but, like, we don't necessarily see the big picture. You know, like, why is Alabasta important? Why is it important that Luffy saved Vivi's home country? We have no idea. Like, it's just these standalone adventures, you could say, especially for, like, the really early series. But the Paramount War, it's big things happening. Like, so, because it's a big story and the biggest things are happening in the story, it feels like it matters. So people take notice of that. And again, same with Steven Universe and the Jailbreak stuff. I think that also got the series a lot of attention. So a lot of people were binged the series up to the war, and then we're reading weekly for like maybe the flashback or Fishman Island. So, and like weekly reading experience generally sucks. So, and you know, Fishman Island, like it's a good arc and I'm going to have a lot to say about it. But like reading it weekly, like reading anything weekly, especially after like coming off the fucking war, like it's going to be rough. And I don't think, you know, I think that impacted a lot of the opinion regarding post-time skip in general. And so that's why I'm definitely curious to see your opinion, because you, again, you've started reading One Piece like last summer pretty much. So it's like you're taking your time because of the Nen Show, but like you're reading all the up to the post time skip and through the post time skip, where a lot of people like have been reading weekly since the war. Not everyone, of course. Like I'm sure there's people who've read it more recently, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So
yeah, I can't imagine reading weekly when we're like in the middle of this battle, and then Oda does this thing where he cuts away to like a backstory flashback for chapters, and it's like, wait, but yeah. I love how like he did that, and then he cuts back, and it's like Jinbei has to explain like, okay, here's what's going on, and I'm like, yeah, that's very clearly, because that would have been like what, a month of non-battle happening.
Right, like, yes. And Luffy, of course, was like, so, back to the mugger, or the robber, and the queen. And he's like, back to the start of the story. Anyway, I'm skipping ahead. So, back to the start. 2 years have passed. Luffy he picks up his hat and is ready to go on his adventure again. Boa Hancock comes in to take him there, and we get to Subodhi, and there's some things happening. There's a couple more rookies. Brooks putting on a concert. The Skeleton King, or the Soul King. Sorry, I messed up. You know, and Straw Hat Luffy is recruiting more pirates. So yeah, did you have any thoughts on this sort of like introduction of all the Straw Hats coming in and being all like like their new designs or anything? It's all cool.
I guess I should address the elephant in the room, that being the new character designs, because I've seen a little bit of discussion about them and like mixed opinions. I don't know, like I feel like at first it was a little weird, because seeing like Frankie without his pompadour, or I think like Usopp got like a different hat. He doesn't have like the bandana anymore. So there's just like some changes which took a little bit of getting used to. Chopper's new hat looked kind of goofy, but I mean, like, as the arc went along, I found that I was getting pretty accustomed to the designs, and I don't know, like, oh, the one thing that did trip me up was Sanji's other eye just gets revealed. So there's one of the great mysteries of One Piece that has been just nonchalantly just there it is.
Yeah, people were theorizing. I remember some old theories like that it was stitched up, like he couldn't see out of it, or one that it was like permanently stuck in the shape of a heart, or it's the Sharingan. No, but now Zoro is the one who gets the theories because he's got an eye scar, and I
did think it was interesting that like Oda did. There was even, I think, Luffy kind of like said something that was like, oh, I want to ask you all these questions, or I want to say all these things, but we don't have time for that. We got to go on to the next adventure.
Yeah.
So like there are certain things that I feel like I expect Oda will explain them eventually, because it seems very weird that he would just not. But like for one thing, Zoro's eye scar, like, how did he get that? But I guess he just had different priorities for this arc, and so I'm like, I'll wait it out and see.
Yeah, well, and another big one is like Robin. She was with the Revolutionary Army and Dragon for like 2 years, so it's like, did she learn like that? The whole like Void Century lore stuff is like super interesting. So, it's a big mystery too, and Robin might have learned more about it, and we don't know shit. So it's like, Oda, tell us.
Yeah, I guess I think of it thinking back to like Naruto's time skip, where like we have to go through several chapters of like, okay, here are all the characters again, and here's what they were doing, and that's like the first priority, like that's what we get to first. But
yeah,
Oda, not so much. He's gonna make us wait for that a bit.
yeah. And as for my thoughts on the designs, like I've obviously had a lot more time with them, and like Nami changes her clothes a lot, so it's like, and her hair, and I think he even gave her long hair. Like you can kind of see it in some of the sketches of like, because that's kind of cool. Is between I don't know if you had them, but like between the two chapters for the time skip, he has like a bunch of like sketches for potential designs for the Straw Hats post time skip, and like Robin or Nami in particular has like different hairstyles and stuff. So it's like, he was probably he probably gave her long hair because she already does stuff with her clothes, so now she has long hair, so she could do more stuff with her hair now. And then Frankie's design is the only one, like I think a lot of some people are definitely iffy on it. Though for me, it's like once he gets his hair back, like his design, like that's the only issue I really have with the design is the baldness. It's like, but once he has hair, I'm fine, more or less fine, especially his normal hair. Like I do really like his old hair, so that's kind of a shame. But it's just like,
yeah, honestly, like all the robotic parts, I think is a cool addition, because it would make sense that like he made himself a cyborg or whatever. So like it would, I feel like that would be like the next. Because he's like a builder, a designer,
yes,
mechanic person, so it kind of makes sense that like he would try to, like that would be, because like even before he would like shoot things out of his body and stuff, like he had weapons built into him, so it would make sense that he would want to like do that, but more.
If he's gonna get stronger, he modifies his body better. He uses Vegapunk's technology, so now he's got like beams and nipple lights and such. So the designs are cool.
But yeah, like I said, the lack of the pompadour really that was what threw me off.
That's like the one like minor issue I have with them. But again, he because like what'll usually happen is I'll have like one hairstyle per arc. So like for this one, he's just bald. But like for the next one, I'm pretty sure. I forget what hair he has next one. But yeah, I definitely remember like later on he'll stick with one hairstyle per arc pretty much. So yeah. So anyway, all the Straw Hats start coming to the island. They're all goofing around and then interacting with the flaw hats or the fake straw hats, and they're a bunch of idiots. Oh my god. Well, it's so funny, like it's just fun like seeing all it, just because it's like, regarding the not talking about the backstories thing, this arc up through Fishman Island, it's like there's little moments for the Straw Hats and they can still have a bunch of great interactions. But like Luffy's even Luffy gets some focus, but overall it's like not a very Straw Hat focused arc, which I would have a problem with if like the stuff that the arc did focus on wasn't interesting. But luckily I did really like it and find it interesting. the whole conflict that we'll get into later. But yeah, it's definitely like, to start off the time skip, I guess it's just kind of like solidifying like what the Straw Hats are after the 2 years, you know, like they're still this family, you know, so it's not going to necessarily challenge them majorly, which was definitely with the case with the fights. So I guess it makes sense, but as a result, yeah, it's not a very Straw Hat focused arc in, you know, a Straw Hat focused story. So I guess I can kind of see that as go on.
I was going to say this sort of right off the bat, although maybe that's to be expected, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out my stance on this arc, because I feel like this is something I'll very much have to reread and figure out like the implications of everything that happens here. Because I feel like, I don't know, maybe somebody could make a case of like the themes of the arc versus because this being the first arc post time skip, it's also very much the characters showing off their new abilities stuff. So it's I don't know if in some way like that aspect of it, characters just kind of showing what they have and looking cool, kind of conflicts with anything. I'm like I said, I don't really have any big stances on it. I'm just I gotta figure some things out with this arc yet.
Yeah, well, because and another thing I thought to think about is like, at the like, considering the point of the story, this is like comparable to like, you know, Little Garden and like Whiskey Peak, you know, like that's, you know, it's the start of another adventure, you know. So it's like, obviously we need build up to get to the Alabasta, to the Water 7, to the Skypiea, you know, the good arcs. So not that this isn't a good arc, like that's the thing. Honestly, I might put Fishman Island in my top 5. Like, I really liked it.
Yeah, so, I can definitely see why. There's like a strong core here.
Yeah, well, it's very Naruto thematically, like hate and understanding and the cycle of vengeance. So that'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say it is not subtle at all with what it's trying to say. Not that that's a bad thing. I mean, I don't think many. I guess it depends what you're talking about. Some shonen stories might have a bit of subtlety, but considering the target demographic,
well,
it would make sense that not with, like, all of them would be.
Yeah, well, it depends on the idea too. Like, you know, something like in this case, it's heavy stuff. Like, I guess it's almost, I compare it to like some of the cynicism in, you know, Hunter x Hunter or something, like, or how, you know, Togashi usually deals with cynicism, and like he like, there's the whole, at the end of Chimera Ant, there's a whole like, oh yeah, humans are bad too, like montage, you know, like he's got to be a bit heavy with it because, you know, he's trying to get like, it's ultimately a story that has to be read by children, you know. So when he gets into something that's honestly like pretty real and dark, you know, both of them, they have to make some concessions for the younger audiences, you know, and be a bit more heavy-handed. So, but I still really liked it. So yeah, and I like Hunter x Hunter too, just to throw that out there. I mentioned that before.
I don't think subtlety like inherently makes us.
Yeah. Well, here's, because it's like, I remember reading like a description of what is objective criticism, and it mentioned like, oh yeah, things that are more subtle or complex or deep are better under objective criticism. And my first thought was like, well, that better depends on the audience, right? Because it's like, if you're a critic looking for that specifically, then yeah, you might like that better. But like, if you're a child, you don't want things that are more subtle, deep, or complex. Like, these are your first experiences with these tropes, these ideas, you know? One Piece might very well be some people's first story in Japan, you know, the first story. So it's like, you know, so things being more subtle or complex doesn't necessarily make it better depending on where you're looking, you know? So it's like again, I'm reading it as an adult, and there's a lot for me to enjoy it as an adult, you know? But you know, lots of people do read shonen stories as adults and still enjoy them, you know? Even if they are, you know, again, made to be read by kids, you know. And One Piece has a lot to dissect, in my opinion. Like, there's a lot of ideas. But yeah.
Yeah, and then, well, that also kind of reminds me of, like, the Naruto factor as well, because we went through our entire podcast not really picking up on certain ideas, even though, like, when I went back to them later, I was like, oh, this is really obvious. They're, like, stating this outright.
Exactly. Like, that was... the first fight of Naruto versus Sasuke, they said some things outright, and then I think another one was that were in my Sasuke video, and another one was I came up with the whole like, oh, Madara, he forms connections through battle, and then you looked at his last words to Hashirama, and he's like, oh yeah, we're like battle bros, and I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. There's Madara literally saying like this whole realization that I had, even though it's literally there in the manga. Man. So anyway, the Straw Hats all gather. There's a bunch of shenanigans, like Zoro getting on the wrong ship and cutting it in half because he's a fucking idiot.
One thing I kind of liked about the start of this arc is it almost felt like Oda was doing the thing where like the characters get split up for certain reasons, and it's like, oh no, this is going to create a little subplot that's going to build up to something later, but then they'll like a Chopper ended up getting caught with the other fake Straw Hats, and I was like, oh no, Chopper's gonna be stuck with these guys for who knows how long. But then like that kind of ended, and then like Zoro like disappearing but then coming back immediately after. So there was a bunch of little things like that where it's just like after following Oda's formula for so long, I see the trappings and I'm like, oh no, where is he going with this? And then he just didn't do it, and they did get off the island safely, so that was kind of fun.
right. That's the thing. They're stronger now. Like some other interactions I liked how like Luffy and Chopper, they're not very good with recognizing people, like very much like Goku in that influence there. If that is the case. But it's like, I mean, that's definitely an example. But my point is like,
when Chopper saw them and like actually thought they were the real Straw Hats, I'm like, you idiot, you stupid.
Wow, you guys sure changed after 2 years. And then, of course, like, Chopper, what? They don't want to save Robin? That means you guys, no! And he cries and runs away. Like, he's... they're so good. But yeah, then of course, there's... I do like the Straw Hats. Like, they're a bit of a meme. Like, I've seen fan art and stuff that sort of, like, it takes, like... actual like big Straw Hat moments, but replaces it with the Straw Hats. Like there's one where there's like the scene of like Luffy saying he's going to be Pirate King to Rayleigh, but instead it's Damalo Black, the fake Luffy, and Rayleigh's just like super confused. He's like, what the fuck is going on? Because Damalo's Black like, I'm going to be Pirate King Rayleigh. It's just, there's a few others like that. It's good because they're a bunch of dorks and they're shit because he's trying to like get other people to do it. He's like a bit like Moria, I suppose, in a sense, where he's trying to use Straw Hat's name. Well, not he's not like Moria in that sense. He's like Moria in the sense that he's trying to get someone else to do things for him. Because he's like, I'm going to be Pirate King. I'll just somehow do it by having other people do things for me. Yeah, that'll work.
So they're the opposite of Duval. Like, they're Straw Hat lookalikes, but they want to use their legacy, whereas, like, Duval had his life ruined because
of... Right. So he was going to kill them. But yeah, and then... So yeah, lots of fun stuff, and then of course you get a bit of a reprise where they run into a couple pacifistas and Sentomaru, but they are stronger now. They no longer need to run. Luffy, all this and the Straw Hats can fight for themselves now. So like, because one thing I've always thought was interesting, like I need to pay attention to later instances because it's like because Luffy's sort of changed how he fights a bit, because. Like Gears 2 and 3 are no longer like special, so to speak. Like they're part of his normal moveset now because he like mastered them and perfected them. So it's like what because like if you look when he's using Gear 2, the smoke only comes out of his arm. It doesn't come out of his whole body.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Right, so it's like, and I think that's super important because, again, like, I mentioned the desperation before, but, like, because Gear 2, it's a desperation move, it cuts out his lifespan because it's like, he has to chip away at his own life because he's not strong enough otherwise, but I feel like this more like, what's the word? Condensed Gear 2, it's probably not as, like, hard on his whole body because he's not, like, rushing his whole body like senses right, so it's just like it's perfected, not just that it's more condensed into one arm, but he's also like I don't know, I've always felt like he's not necessarily hurting his lifespan by using it. That's just a interpretation I've had because again it's like it's not affecting his whole body, so I guess there's not as much basis for that as I'd like, but it's definitely like I don't know, it seems fitting to me. So oh yeah, and also Zoro and Sanji are also strong enough to defeat the pacifistas now. So that's cool. Like, they're arguing about who actually did it. Because it's Zoro and fucking Sanji. Of course, they start arguing immediately. Like, I love when the ship comes back up and Sanji's like, oh, he's fine. Not that I care. Like, he's such a tsundere. It's so good. But yeah, Luffy... He's gonna be king of the pirates. He's ready he's finally ready for the new world after 2 years. And we get to see everyone come to help them escape. They fought, they surpassed the pacifistas, and now they're being helped. Perona is looking good in her new outfit, and she's like, it's the villains coming back is always something. And then everyone else helps too. Boa, the Okamas, Hercules, the weather people, everyone. It's cool. See, it's like the first part of the arc is good. It's fine, but it's like stuff gets more interesting like later for sure. So yeah, they descend. Did you have anything more to say about the return to Subodhi section of the arc, or no? I mean, there's a couple more things to mention, but that's me moving on.
No, I guess not.
Yeah, that's fine. It's getting to see the characters again, getting to see a bit of their new stuff. But so anyway, there is a bit of a flashback with a very short flashback with Rayleigh, where he thinks about when he met Gold Roger. What Mathwiz? What's that on Roger's head? A straw hat?
Is it a straw hat?
Yeah, it looks familiar.
Oh, so the lineage of the straw hat. Oh,
so it seems that Roger had it and probably gave, like, assuming it's the same one, which I have no reason not to think. Lots of theories have run with that idea. Like, he showed Roger with a straw hat, looking a little like Luffy, like something about his smile, his open shirt. Young Gold Roger looks like, and of course the hat. So it's like, did he, he gave it to Shanks and Shanks gave it to Luffy. So it's like, well, I mean, again, there's inherited will there, but that's which opens up some interesting questions. Does the straw hat
contain a secret to the will of D?
The straw hat is the One Piece. The hat was the One Piece the whole time.
The real One Piece was the friends we made along the way.
God damn it. No, it's fine. Yeah, so it's like that. I just want to point that out because that opens up a lot of interesting questions regarding Shanks. Like, because it's like, did Roger once think that Shanks would be the next Pirate King, but Shanks decided, like, if Shanks decided that Luffy would be better, why did Shanks not want that throne for himself? Like, oh, if we ever get a Shanks arc, ooh, I think it's going to be interesting. Because, see, okay, he's not, like, because I said before that, as we're going to talk about next, Bartholomew Kuma is, like, one of the most mysterious characters in the series, next to another. Shanks is up there, but he's not the other one I'm thinking of, but Shanks, I think we know more about the Void Century than we do Shanks, in all honesty. Like, we know he's an emperor. He tried to stop Whitebeard, from, sending Ace to Blackbeard and stuff. Like, what else do we know about? He comes from the West Blue. We don't know much about him at all, and so I think a Shanks history arc or flashback would be really interesting, just because. Yeah,
and then he'll join the Straw Hats.
Yes, he gets a tragic backstory and becomes the. Yeah, I mean, Frankie and Brooke are both, or no, maybe Frankie's a little younger than Shanks. Brooke is way older, of course. So yeah, Frankie's like pretty old for a Straw Hat, but so anyway, they descend into the ocean and we start learning about the mechanics of the bubbles. And eventually Frankie tells them about why the ship is safe after so long. Because, well, Hachi and Duval were protecting it, but also Bartholomew Kuma, who they actually find out that Kuma was, they find out that he was protecting them on Subodhi. They learned that from Rayleigh, or from Rayleigh and Shaki, because he told Rayleigh during the battle. And then he had himself, like, he had Vegapunk put an order into his mind to protect the ship for 2 years, and so so that's why I'm really fucking interested in Kuma, because it's like they even say, like, we don't know why he did it, but he protected the Straw Hats and their ship, but now he's an emotionless human weapon. He gave himself to the government, and I'm like, God. And seeing that panel of him, like, fucking, like, with all the battle scars and stuff from the 2 years of fighting, when Frankie comes in, like, it's just rough seeing him all beat up like that. I don't know. Kuma's a strange, mysterious boy. All right. So yeah, moving on. So yeah, they start their descent into the ocean. We get a bit of I guess it's like foreshadowing, sort of, like, or it's like he brings Momo from Arlong Park. Like, I guess he escaped. What are they gonna do? Imprison a sea cow? And then he just ended up in the Grand Line, and Caribou's crew used him as an animal to pilot their ship, which fucked him over because he was afraid of Luffy and Sanji. I don't know. Did you have any thoughts about that little callback, or because how long has it been since we read that stuff?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting because, like, this arc has a lot of Arlong callbacks in general, and I mean what was the other arc that they were involved in, the Subodhi stuff, like there were callbacks there too. So, like, this was coming. And I did think it was cool when the sea cow showed up, because at that point I was just like, oh, this is not gonna go well, is it? And of course then things got messy, and Caribou's like, oh, let's attack the Straw Hats, we will take their head, and he was alone.
That was good. Caribou's like he's like he's like a shithead. He's just a murder guy who's doing bad things. But I don't know. He's well. Like I think another thing is like because I feel like it's the same with the Fishman too. Like Caribou is an opponent who would have like given the Straw Hats a lot of trouble before the time skip because he's a Logia. They couldn't touch him reasonably, so they like. But now he's a joke. Like he's like a 200 berry dude, but now who's being treated like a gag character. So I think that, and also like the Fishmen. I feel like they were like shown as fairly strong, especially Hody, but for the most part they went down pretty, especially the lieutenants and stuff. They went down pretty easily. So it's like the power curve has reset in a sense. The Straw Hats are top dogs again, like just like they were again. I love that moment of Whiskey Peak where it's like, oh shit, it's Mr. 5 and Miss Valentine. They're supposed to be top hot shot shit, but no, Zoro and Luffy just one shot them. So, or they treat them like jokes. That's for sure. Oh man, but yeah, there's a lot of adventure as they go down. The sea floor. We just learn lots of little bits about like the bubbles and ocean, One Piece ocean. Oh, and there's the usual gags like I think, oh, it's a mystery current, like it's just One Piece being One Piece, and it's fun. But I'm not sure if I have anything specific to say about it at the moment. Was there anything you wanted to comment on throughout their descent downwards?
I mean, just more like cool world stuff. Like we get to see like the characters are underwater. Like that's cool. There's like an underwater ocean, an ocean in the ocean. So there's you get to see a bunch of cool sea creatures and see Oda create his things.
Yeah. Though I guess there were a couple moments, like there was one with Usopp I liked when like I think the volcano was erupting and they were they were in danger, and like before when all that was happening Usopp was freaking out, but then like when the rocks were coming down Usopp was the one who stopped them. Like so it's like he acts like a coward still, but at the same time he's able to be reliable. Like he was the one who helped them because they no one else could do. He did what he could do without like questioning it. Sort of like he's able to act, and I thought that was really cool. Because he's even if he was scared before, he's still he's more courageous. He can act, and that kind of comes up with the Dharma bit with the fight later with in a brief little bit. But maybe it's a different bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a neat little moment.
There is one other moment that comes up later that I was a little like, not with Usopp. That was with Chopper. But like with Usopp, we had already kind of seen him start to like he had already taken steps in the story itself to become a more like confident person and take action. So
to be a brave warrior, as he says.
Him becoming a little braver and a little more competent over the time skip, I think is fine because it's like we had already seen some growth from him on that front. But like later, Chopper has a moment, which
during his fight, especially,
would have been like it was a cool aspect of like his character, and I feel like that's maybe we see it later, maybe there's some sort of flashback to show what the characters did, but at the moment, like we find out that Chopper's gotten better with the rumble ball, and I don't know, like part of that seems tied to his character conflict, and that it happened off screen was a little.
Yeah, well, it's like, yeah, he was kind of like, he's been accepting that he's a monster since like the Garasu stuff, but like, here he's more embracing it with like appearance wise, like even his human form looks like even more like an abominable snowman than his it did before, and he's also embraced his monster points. So I guess I understand your issue, but like he did mention that with like right before the time skip, he said, I'm willing to become a monster, to help Luffy. So it's like, yeah, the one who accepted him even when when he thought he was a monster, now he's like, sure, I'll be a monster. So that's kind of nice. But
maybe I'm cherry picking. I don't know why the Chopper one specifically, because I don't know, Chopper was the character I felt like I wanted to see more from. And
I agree. I don't know. Like he's definitely the because I hate to say I have a least favorite Straw Hat. I love Chopper, but like it's just I don't have as much to say about, like he's cute and I like seeing his interactions and he's fun, but it's like I can say that about almost every Straw Hat except Chopper is the cutest. I could definitely say that about Chopper and no one else. But like I don't know, I just wish there was more I wish Chopper had more moments to shine, and it'd be great. Not that he doesn't, and there will be some for sure, but Oh, and one other observation I had to mention. There's a bit of a flashback when, or maybe this was later. Because Sanji, yeah, it was later. Never. No, maybe it was underwater. Because he's able to do the moonwalk, the Cyberpole 9 technique where he could jump off the air.
Yeah.
And he sort of picked it up by because he was running on the Kamabaka Queendom. And well, there was one thing that was a translation I wasn't a fan of because he was like, oh yeah, I learned it running from those abominations, and I didn't like that choice of word, and I checked, and the colored translation was much more toned down because it's just like he doesn't like their appearance, so like I did. Calling the Okama's abominations is a bit much, but for I had a.
That's kind of what I figured. It was just coming from like Sanji's perspective, because like we had talked before in the previous, or maybe the one before that.
Impel Down, yeah.
Like like this arc in particular really kind of hammered it home that like I don't see Oda being a discriminatory person. Like it's hard for me, especially after reading this arc, for him to have that kind of opinion towards anyone except like hateful people like the antagonist of this arc.
Yeah. Well, and another thing specifically with Sanji, I forget if I mentioned this before, but like, because well, the thing, he was being surrounded by all sides, and he ran into the air basically. Like that's how he framed him learning that technique. But like, he didn't attack the maidens. Like Ivankov even said like oh, you have to steal the recipes from the chefs. Like, so it's like with these men with the heart of maidens, so to speak, Sanji, I have no reason to think that Sanji fought any of them. Like, he did fight Mr. 2 back in the day, and he might have tried to fight he probably tried to fight Ivankov because he wanted, but both of those characters they're characters who can change their gender, so they're a bit different than, so I've always thought it was interesting that, since I've realized it, I say always, but I only realized it like within the last couple months, that Sanji still doesn't hit these women, so to speak. Like, he's never, for the normal Okamas, he still doesn't hit them. So even if he doesn't like them, and because they hit on him all the time, and he finds them unattractive because they're drawn not particularly attractively, he still doesn't hit them. So I've always thought like his code of chivalry may very well still apply to them even if he doesn't like them. And I like, just like with like Kokoro, he thought was ugly, Kareha he still protected even though she was also an old woman that he didn't like particularly because she was she was a bit mean. So it's like, yeah, I've liked when I realized that little thing, I was like, hey, I like that, cool.
And I did like the way of him learning the technique too, like, oh, so I ran to the sky, and then like you see him when he like fights the Kraken, he's like running through water, and that's a cool technique.
Like he kicks out of his bubble and goes back to it. It's cool, yeah. So yeah, that's I think all I had to mention about the descent down to Fishman Island. So they get there and they run into a herd of sea animals, and led by Hammond of the new Fishman pirates, and of course they're not going to let themselves be minions of some guy who they don't care about. They're going to Fishman Island. They charge in anyway, and they make it. And of course this causes a few misunderstandings because they are like, oh no, we made an illegal entry. They're gonna attack us, but it might have been fine. And this arc, I don't know. It's a series of events.
Yeah, I did kind of like the setup that this arc ended up having. Because you also had when they fought the Kraken, there was like the shark with the shirt.
Right.
It's like,
Megalo,
oh, what's that doing there? But it's the pet of the princess, and so that's like there were like two good reasons. Well, because there was like Jinbei's message too, so there was like reasons. Like there was a few, if things had gone perfectly in a perfect world, they would have like met up with the people and things would have been fine, and like there would have been no confusion, there would have been no fighting or suspicion or anything like that. But
right.
Things just didn't work out that way because this is One Piece.
Stories are more interesting this way, yeah, if everything goes horribly wrong. Because, yeah, they go in, they meet Kami, or Kami, yeah, Kami, I almost pronounced it wrong again. My brain, and she goes to hang out, take him to the Mermaid Cafe. So, I guess one thing, because people definitely find this annoying, but Sanji being his pervy jokes, or the nosebleeds, like, because people definitely found that annoying. I was wondering what you thought.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of I personally found it annoying. But again, like, it did seem like a weird plot point to go with. Like, there's even I took a screen cap where Chopper's like, oh, Sanji's blood type is pretty rare, you know? And I'm like, is this going to be a plot point? And sure enough, it was. But, like, I don't know. One Piece has done goofy stuff before, so I feel like it would be weird for me to cherry pick this particular instance just because, I mean, like, I guess there are other connotations that could maybe be attached to it, but I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Because it's like, for me, it's like, because I like a lot of One Piece's humor, as I laugh about every episode, but like, and so not all the jokes work for me. Like, I don't particularly like fart jokes, and nosebleeds, like, what's the joke? They saw a thing and they got a nosebleed. Like, I from a Western perspective, it barely even constitutes as a joke, okay? Like, it's like, it's wholly a Japanese thing. Like, that's what you think of when you think of anime. But I do like how it's a plot point. Like, the fact that he's running out of blood becomes, like, a reason for tension, and then that turns into, like, ties into the whole racial conflict because of how, the races treat, blood transfusions. So it's, like, of course, you turn such a ridiculous joke into, like, an actual, like, thematic point. Like, it ties in, it's not thematic in itself, but it ties to the ideas of the arc, and I like that. So even if I don't find the joke itself funny,
it is maybe a little, like, you could maybe say, well, it's kind of tonally off to, like, have something that goofy kind of tie into these really serious themes, but I guess
that, like, just One Piece? Yeah.
That's just One Piece, because I think of, like, another example that I kind of talked to you about a few weeks ago. Zombieland Saga, this anime that recently aired, had a trans character in it, but like, the way they handled it was still very goofy and over the top, as that series is. So, like, it takes this concept and, like, blends it into the, like, the tone and the presentation and the style of that series. And so, like, I feel like that's kind of what One Piece does here with Sanji. Like, it's a character trait of his, and they just play it up. What's the word? Hyperbole, but that's not the word. Well,
they exaggerate it even more. Yeah,
exaggerate. Yes.
No, I kind of see what you mean, but it's like, yeah, they exaggerate it even more because, and for reasons. He was stuck on an island with only people he wasn't attracted to for 2 years. So he sees, like, regular women, and he's having nosebleeds. And when he sees, like, really attractive women, like, he sees Shirahoshi and Boa Hancock, like, some of the most beautiful women in the world, and turns to stone. Like, that doesn't even make sense for Shirahoshi. She doesn't have that power. Like, but it's like, it's taken to even higher extremes. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another, like, what's another character trait that other characters in this series have that have, like, been played up for a plot point like this. But I can't think of an example off the top of my head. But, like, I don't know. I'm fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think if there's another arc when like, I don't know, has Usopp's cowardice ever been, like, really exaggerated for a plot point? I feel like it has. I feel like that's come up before.
I mean, it's definitely been, like for character mode, like with the Chew fight. Yeah. But, anyway, yeah, I'm not sure about an exact example, but anyway, moving on. So yeah, I mentioned that, of course, because this is where it becomes relevant, because he's playing around in the mermaid cafe with the mermaids. The princes arrive. They're looking for the Straw Hats, but in attempting to hide Sanji, he reveals himself through a giant nosebleed that's shaped like a mermaid, and then the blood stuff comes up, that the fact that Fishman, like, legally they cannot give blood to humans, or vice versa. I forget. Yeah, but they also mention Fisher Tiger, who who, like, because the story we find out later was fabricated by Arlong, where Fisher Tiger, he needed blood, but humans refused to give him blood, and he died. Of course, that doesn't turn out to be exactly true, but yeah. But yeah, they fight and they run. See, we're in the setup part, so there's a little less to talk about.
I mean, there is. Well, yeah, I guess this is what just comes up later, but, like, just the introduction of, like, this. I mean, there's, like, the mutual racism of, like, we see on Saboti, there was, like, the slave trading, so it's, like, the humans treating the fishmen as inferior, and then we kind of get the inverse on Fishman Island, where, you see kind of the effects of how it's kind of cultivated this, not reverse racism, but, like, it's the other side of that coin.
Right.
The other extreme. I mean,
we actually saw the anti-human racism first with Arlong, because he was spouting that same idea.
You're right. He I guess, yeah, that did happen, but it just wasn't a super big idea for that
arc. Right. Well, because this is, like, almost 600 chapters later, like 500 to 600 chapters later, and we're only now like really expanding on it. Like we got bits of it in Sabaody, but this is where they like really mix together and we go all in, you know. But so it's neat to see Arlong again after so long. I'm really excited to talk about that flashback, because it's a really good flashback. But oh yeah, we also meet Hyozo, who the swordsman, who Hachi mentioned his existence way back in Arlong Park, because he said that he was the second best fishman on Swordsman Island, and there's number one. And then we meet Madame Shyarly, who is a fortune teller who has supposedly made predictions that are they've always happened, every single one. And I definitely think. See, okay, well, now we're talking about Fate again. This arc is definitely Naruto, because now we're in Neji shit. No, I'm kidding. Understanding Neji, like, she's just Neji. No, I'm kidding. She can't see or Neji couldn't see the future. But he did talk about Fate. Yeah, I think I'll save our discussion on that for later. But, because it influences a lot of actions, definitely. But, because in the past I've said I wasn't satisfied with it, but rereading it, I'm like, no, it's fine. So I'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, they go around. We learn that the Fishman Island was covered by Whitebeard, but now Big Mom, it's Big Mom's territory. She is supposedly protecting it. Not like we see any one of hers do anything until like after, right?
Yeah, and then there's just that panel of Luffy like, oh, I hope we get to meet Big Mom one day, and I'm just like,
are you sure about that? That seems dangerous. She's an emperor. Oh yeah, and we also we saw a bit of him in the on the descent there. Vanderdecken. He gets introduced, mentioned as well.
What I think is kind of, it's not even like part of. It's not even really like an idea that gets explored in this arc, but I just think it's kind of interesting that we have this. It's almost like I don't want to say like flipping a fairy tale on its head, because I don't think it's that. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't think like it's that focused. I just think it's a coincidence. But like you have the princess who's like locked away in this tower for reasons, but it's because like the guy who's like going after her is like a stalker and like trying to like kill her if she won't marry him.
Marry her. Yes. Piece of shit. But yeah. I guess that is a bit fairy tale-esque. Now you mention it.
As opposed to Fairy Tail, the other Shounen anime,
which
is
of a bitch. Manga. Not today. We're not talking about that today.
More like Bleach Piece, am I right?
God damn it. Okay, moving on. No, it's fine. So yeah, we get introduced to our main antagonist of the arc, Hody Jones. He's got his human minions, and some of them are trying to escape, so he goes wild on them. He uses his drugs to get a power boost and then just fucking destroys them. Like, kind of, well, because it's like, I don't know. Did you have any thoughts on Hody Jones's introduction? Because I have something to say that ties into some ideas, but go on. Or did you have any thoughts on Hody Jones in general? I'm curious too, because he's I'll save my thoughts.
Yeah, I was gonna say I won't really say much now because we haven't gotten to like the actual material.
I'll wait then too. Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't remember his introduction. Like this arc had a lot going on.
That's fair. Because he just takes the pills and destroys a pirate crew that was trying to escape.
Oh yeah, that's right. There is the part where he wears the handcuffs and he's like, oh, that's just to show how strong he is.
That's the part I was talking about, because he doesn't use any weapons or Fishman karate. He just like destroys them, and he sends the bubble up to let humans fear us. To let them and well, because one thing
I don't know, maybe there's something to say with that, like because he doesn't use any weapons, that like he's using his pure fishman strength to show how.
That's what I wanted to mention, because that's not actually true, because he's using the drugs. Because to contrast him with Arlong, Arlong and his crew, they use their fishman natural abilities. Like Arlong, prided his nose and his lots of his attack. Like he did have a sword, but he mostly uses used his fishman power. Karubi used his fishman karate. Chu spat water. Hachi had 6 swords because he had 6 arms. So it's like their racial attributes were like a huge part of how they fought. But Hody Jones uses a drug to get physically stronger, because like he doesn't just use his racial abilities. Like he kind of corrupts it with because I remember mostly because I mentioned it because I watched all his videos recently. Super Eye Patch Wolf's Dragon Ball video. He talked about how like the main characters of Dragon Ball, they gain power through like physical training and internal effort, while a lot of the antagonists like Cell and Boo, they gain power through external means. They absorb other characters usually, so they're not like training, but they're they're gaining power through taking from someone else, basically. So it's like, basically, he there's a difference between internal power and external power. So it's like, by using the drugs, it's an external power source, and they're incredibly reliant on it, to the point, like, I'm actually reminded, if you've read Akira, I don't think you have, right, Mathwiz?
I have seen the movie, but not read it.
Did Tetsuo eat a lot of pills in Akira? Because in the manga, he definitely did. He was fucking, like, eating them by the handful, but, because that's... Yeah, I don't remember exactly the detail. Actually, I think he did in the movie, because the movie cuts out a lot. Because it's like adapting adapted like 2 volumes of a 6-volume story, more or less. Though some from later, it was weird. I mean, the manga didn't even finish until the movie was done, and the movie was directed by the author of the manga. So it's like, it's definitely an interesting case as far as manga anime adaptations go. But yeah, that's just a personal thing I was reminded of. But yeah, that's sort of what I took from Hody Jones using the drug, and of course it dooms him eventually because he becomes an old man, because that's the Tamatabako is, it's like a mythical you might have heard of it elsewhere, have you, or no?
No, I don't think so. Not that I can recall.
It's a myth that there's a box that if you open it, you become old. I forget, there's more to the myth. Like, I think there's a woman involved, and a fisherman gets the box somehow, or the sea god. Yeah, so it's like, that's why Hody becomes old at the end, and all of his men, for using the drug, because that's how it works. You become old from then that was a drug. They found the drug in the Tamatabako treasure box from the royal treasury. So yeah, but yeah, if that's my point. He uses an external power source and gets fucked over in the end. Like, because like, and you notice that a lot, like I mentioned in Bleach too, with Ichigo, he gains power in the Aizen fight through meditation, through internal, while Aizen uses the whole Gyoku, which is an external source of power. Did the Boruto movie have the stuff in the Chunin exams with the ninja tools and Boruto cheating?
Yes.
It did, right? You're right, an external source of power he was using, and it was framed as incorrect of him to use that. So yeah, it's very common, I think, and so this is just another example I wanted to point out. But like I said, I also thought it was interesting because in using an external source of power, he's kind of like he's saying Fishmen are great, but what is he without his drugs? Like, he's kind of like, Zoro fucking one-shots him underwater. Like, he ain't shit without his drugs. Oh man. So yeah, moving on, the Straughts are adventuring around, and King Neptune descends to invite them to the Ryugu Palace, the Fishman Kingdom's, capital, or main city, or main building.
I did think it was kind of interesting. Oh, yeah, one thing I forgot to kind of, I guess, discuss earlier, like when the crew entered the Fishman Island and they got, like, separated, I did think it was kind of cool how, like, some characters would pop up in certain places at certain times. So, like, they go to this shop and, like, Nami's just there, like...
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
These clothes are too expensive.
Oh, you can have them for free, and then they take all the bags of them. But yeah, they kind of just, like, gradually introduce that. Like, Zoro, they find at the palace because he was just, like, they found him first, and they took him there, and he was getting drunk, and then they, briefly captured him, because the things happened.
I think one of my favorite moments of that in this arc was, like, something was happening, and then, like, they mentioned Robin, and then there's, like, this one-page cutaway to Robin, and she's, like, so disconnected from everything else. It's like, oh, yeah, true. Here's Robin, and then they just cut back. I don't know, it just seems kind of... It seems like funny timing, but, like, it's not a problem. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. Oh, yeah, and there was a joke on the way to the palace where Neptune says, like... I believe his name was Zori, and and they're like, no, it's Zolo, and it's like, that would have been a perfect, like, time to use, like, the to reference the original name, because Zori is a little, because obviously it's Zori, there's just a letter difference instead of a whole syllable difference, but, like, it just would have, I just think it would have been a funny time to reference the fact that they're forced to use the 4Kids name, or maybe they want to use Zolo, I don't know the translator, I don't know who he is, but Yeah, I just it's just a name gag because Funimation actually did do a name gag like that in Skypiea, I think. But anyway, moving on.
Really,
that's a bit irrelevant. But yeah, they get to the palace. I really like the spread of the palace, like just with all the, especially like I wish. See, it's like I every time I read the series, like I always want to try it out in the colored version because it looks the art's different because it's in color. But, you know, I wanted to read it in the regular version this time because A, it's easier because I have physical volumes, and B, you know, I want us to both read the same translation if possible, the Viz, even if that's a bit rough for you with the split up 2-page spreads. Sorry, whatever site you're using.
Oh, that does remind me. Someone had left a comment on the previous one talking about the Shonen Jump thing that they have now. But I would imagine that Shonen, like, their catalog would be of the weekly releases, so like if any of the art gets touched up, or you know, any of the like volume
maybe for the
SBS stuff, like I don't know if that would be there or not.
No, the old archive do have the volume stuff. I heard someone tweet about that. Someone retweeted it. Yeah, if you're only able to read like the most recent chapters if you go for free, but if you pay for the subscription, you can read 100 chapters a day is the limit. But which is, I mean, there being a limit is maybe, but I don't know. 100 chapters seems pretty reasonable. Like, we don't do more than, like, no, we're not going to do 100 chapters for, at least for One Piece. Like, for Bleach, that might be a problem, but for One Piece,
but no. Even, like, with Bleach, that would cover, like, most of what I think most reading was.
Like some of the readings you'd have to read a little bit more, you know, like 30 to 40 chapters, even if that outside.
But even if it's
like
a day, then
website.
I could just like split that over 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good deal. I don't know if I'll go through with it myself because I haven't tried their reader. But it's definitely an option to consider, especially if they keep the pages together. Like, would you pay to have the 2-page spreads in all their glory, right? So yeah,
anyway, because that also got me think of like, you know, if someone would read Hunter x Hunter and you'd get like the weekly like Greed Island scans as opposed to like the volume ones where it's like completely changed.
I'm wondering if like because it hasn't been around, the service hasn't been around long enough because it's like there's only, you know, it's only been around for like a month or two, a month at most, I'm pretty sure, if that. So it's like there'd be that means there'd be at most like 4 chapters of a new series. That's not enough for a volume to come out. So I'm wondering if like when a new volume comes out, like officially in English, will they go back and update like so right now with One Piece chapter, I don't know, volume 90 whatever hasn't come out. So it's like when that volume comes out, or no, chapter, yeah, I think the last one in English was 88. So when 89 comes out, like, will they go back and update those chapters with the volume version that has the SBS? Like, that would be ideal. And the redrawings, because like Naruto and Bleach, you know, especially Naruto, and Hunter x Hunter is another good example. Like, but yeah, they've had some art corrections of the volumes. Like, we read the volume releases for Naruto, so we didn't see any of the like the really bad art, you know. So yeah, that's ideally they'd go back and you know, change it for the volumes. Like for Naruto and Bleach, it shouldn't be a problem, and One Piece it shouldn't be for like at least 80 or so volumes. But I'm curious as to going forward. So if that's your concern, then you know, that's just my take on it. So yeah. So anyway, they get to the palace. Luffy smells food, so he goes off on his own and accidentally sneaks into the princess's secret chamber and meets Shirahoshi, who is giant. She's big, like her dad. I do like their interactions, though. Like, for some reason, the one of where Luffy's eating and she, like, pokes his cheek and he spits out his food. For some reason, I like that little bit.
And then he's like, "What are you doing?" And then
she gets mad.
I love their interactions of, like, because, like, Luffy is just so... He's just
not
so, like...
Fuck,
yeah, like, he doesn't care. He's, like, insensitive maybe a little bit at times. But, like, it's just interesting to see, like, there's the part where, like, because she cries a lot, and so he's like, "Wow, you're a weakling. I hate you." And then she's like, "Go away." But he, like, just keeps, like, pressing her because, like, she just, like, I don't know, she's, like, doesn't know how to interact with people because she's, like, cooped up in this place.
Yes,
and so, like, there's a weird, like,
10 years,
disconnect on both sides. So, like, when she's like, "Get out," but Luffy's, like, insensitive enough to, like, not actually take that to heart. And then there's like there's another moment where like she's upset or whatever, and Luffy's just like trying to be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it." It's just funny seeing Luffy try to like process it.
Yeah. And well, yeah, because she's like, yeah, she is weak. She's been stuck in here for so long, but she, she wants to go see, trees in the sun. Because she's been, and she even, when she was free, she was still underwater her whole life. And Luffy's like, hey, let's, I can protect you. Let's go. Like he's willing to fight for her freedom because she's been trapped in here for her protection. But Luffy's strong enough to so even if he doesn't like her, he's still like, hey, let's do some stuff. Like it's a little reminiscent of the Kobe stuff almost, like. Just because he was too weak to do anything, but Luffy inspired him to move and act, and that becomes important for Shirahoshi later. So yeah, we'll talk about that for sure. So anyway, back at the palace, or the main part of the palace, the Straw Hats are the royals are trying to capture the Straw Hats because of Shyarly's prophecy that says that the Straw Hats are going to destroy the island, and I really love how this turns out. Because they capture the king and all the soldiers, and then they say, whoops, we dropped out by Fishman Island and accidentally occupied the castle. It's such a silly situation. It's so organic, but I just love how it's framed. Like, I think it was funny in an older translation, because it, whoops, we did, how does that sound? Because that's kind of what happened. They didn't mean to do it. And of course it's the worst thing that happened because it's they're already being suspected of stealing mermaids because they don't know, the fishmen don't know about caribou, and of course there's prophecy, and now they've actually done something that can be seen as wrong, even though really they were just defending themselves. So oh man, I just love it. I just love the two-page spread of they're arguing about fuck, what do we do now, after having captured everyone.
I think there was another part where King Neptune had said something like, well, I don't know if we should imprison them. I kind of want to think it over. So let me capture you. So it's I don't know if we should imprison you. So give me time and let me imprison you so I can decide if we should imprison you or not. And it's just a funny scenario.
Yeah, and Neptune's the doofus, and I love how when they find out that the princess has escaped, because Luffy comes up with the stupidest plan that works perfectly, where he stuffs her in Megalo's mouth, and they escape. I love the fucking panel of Luffy, he's got his finger out, he's charge, and then Megalo's going through, and Shirahoshi's just in his mouth, and it's just so Luffy. But Neptune he actually figured out the plan because he's oh yeah, Megalo came out and with Luffy and we don't know where the princess is, and he's what if the princess was in Megalo's mouth? And he's nah, King, you're crazy. No one would ever do that. He's stupid, but he thinks on the same wavelength as Luffy, so they're both stupid.
Stupid understands stupid. It's great.
It's just the gags are good as always. Oh yeah, they do have a bit of a conversation with the Prince Fukaboshi.
I also like the one gag where I guess this is a little later, but after she's been kidnapped, they say, and he's I'll do anything to get my daughter back. I'll even let you slay my soldiers. And they're just wait, what?
Wait a minute, what? Though speaking of Shirahoshi's escape, I also like how afterwards she's I'm sorry, but I want to go outside. I'll be sure to be home by dinner, though. She's so adorable. Her face when she said that is just, she's cute. She's adorable. But anyway, oh yeah, so there's a moment where Fukaboshi gives Zoro the messages from Jinbei. Do not fight Hody, and I await you at the forest of the sea. Which Luffy doesn't even know that, but he goes there anyway because that's where Shirahoshi wanted to go. For Otohime's grave. So yeah. Oh, we're getting close to the flashback. I'm excited, I'm sorry. So anyway, as this is all going down, Hody Jones has sent he's allied with Vanderdecken. Vanderdecken is using his powers to throw soldiers at the castle, at Shirahoshi specifically, but they land at the castle because that's where she is. So they're mounting their attack. Oh yeah, we also see Hachi. He's sort of confronting Hody a bit, and we get a bit of their ideals, especially Hody's, where he wants to carry on Arlong's will, and he will kill any humans and any fishmen who sympathize with humans to do so. Hody included, even though Hody worked with Arlong and Fisher Tiger. So yeah, Luffy and Shirahoshi managed to escape. And yeah, there's the moment you were talking about earlier where it's where's Robin? And oh, there's Robin. Oh, and we do get a moment of Frankie because he's with Tom's little brother because Tom left Fishman Island with Kokoro and they ended up at Water 7. And then Den's he's just kind of there to drop some exposition. But yeah, it's fine. So yeah, Hody and Vanderdecken arrive at the palace. Vanderdecken pretty much leaves immediately because he's chasing after Shirahoshi, whereas Hody Jones talks about his connection with Arlong and gives Nami a bit like Nami's face when Arlong is mentioned, and how like he was thwarted by a band of humans, and of course this band of humans, and Nami, Nami, that's some Arlong arc was really good, so. And yeah, they fight for a bit, and there is another interesting contrast here, because like he says he's carrying Arlong's will, but I mentioned he's using drugs and sort of corrupting his whole like, oh yeah, fishmen are stronger, that's why you have to use drugs to keep up with humans. But he also, there's a moment where Zoro attacks, and he grabs one of his crewmates and uses him to block the attack, and like, if you remember back in Arlong arc, Arlong mourned over his fallen comrades. Like when Zoro, cut them all up, he was pissed and sad, like that. Those were his comrades who were suffering because of Zoro, someone he'd captured, and now Hody's sort of like letting his comrades be his shield because he doesn't care. Like he's not he doesn't care about fishmen, so to speak. Like he just he wants to destroy humans more than he likes fishmen, I suppose. Which is, so yeah, it's like he's carrying Arlong's will, but he's not really following it, honestly. So did you have any thoughts about the palace stuff or Zoro defeating Hody? Because I mentioned that earlier already.
I mean, yeah, it was a cool moment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because one thing I thought about that, because like in like beating Hody, he kind of like smashes Hody's ideals, sort of like that fishmen are better even underwater because like, because Arlong, like in the Arlong arc, none of the Straw Hats beat a fishman underwater, like so they were stronger on land. But here you have Zoro easily dispatching Hody underwater, so it just kind of like, well, now what do you do, Hody? Like there goes all your ideals, and of course he retreats into the drugs, and then he's able to capture them, because they run out of air because they're underwater. Brook can't even move, and yeah, so that happens. I did skip over something because Luffy has a bit of a scene with Vanderdecken outside because Shirahoshi gets vomited up.
I remember seeing the one volume cover, and it had Luffy tied up, and I'm like, oh no, Oda.
How did that happen? Yeah. That's actually interesting when you bring that up, because it's like one thing, because I kind of talked about this in an old video that was incoherent and kind of rambly. It's taken down now. It was did hockey kill the action in One Piece? And one thing I was trying to get across in that video is sort of how like after the time skip, the Straw Hats are stronger now, and when so it's like, compare this again. Arlong arc makes a perfect comparison. Like when Luffy was stuck in the ground up to his ankles, like he was helpless. Like he tried to fight Arlong, but he pretty much couldn't do anything. But to compare that to this is like Luffy defeats Vanderdecken, a character who I would say is probably stronger than Arlong. And he defeats him, like, pretty easily while tied up. Like, Luffy is so much stronger at this point in the story, like, you can't handicap these characters anymore. Like, because that's the whole thing during the Ace Blues. They're always handicapped. Because they're so strong, they need to be, knocked down a peg so that they can actually, have a fair fight. But at this point, they're so strong that even attempts to handicap them usually don't go over well. Like, it is a little different for the Hody fight, as I'll talk about later. But yeah, it's, I thought that was interesting because, yeah, Luffy's tied up, but it doesn't affect him at all, basically. Like, he still easily takes care of Vanderdecken, and escapes. So, yeah, I thought that was neat. Nami escapes with Kami to go to the forest, and so everyone's heading to the forest. So, yeah, any final thoughts on that, or shall we move on to the forest itself?
I mean, it is interesting that they all kind of end up going there anyway, even without getting, or I guess like Nami goes there because she knew about the message, but like Luffy getting there just by sheer coincidence.
Yes, and Frankie was there because that, Sunny, it was a good place to hide Sunny. Jinbei was of course waiting there, so it all kind of works out. And of course Sanji and Chopper because they were with Luffy, or they met Luffy outside. Like, because that's what I like, is like the pieces are always moving into place. Like I mentioned that I really like that how the fights sort of panned out in Enea's lobby, and it and this is it's just like Oda's pretty good at putting the characters where they need to be more or less organically. Like it's like, oh yeah, this happens, so that happens, and it's cool. But yeah, so they arrive at the forest. Luffy's Luffy's surprised to see Jinbei, and Jinbei's like, oh hey, it's Princess Shirahoshi. Holy fucking shit, it's Princess Shirahoshi. He like loses his shit a bit. That's funny. And they sort of hash out the situation. And of course, yeah, Jinbei has a lot of explaining to do. Though there's other stuff going on because you have the Fishmen, the Neo Fishman pirates. I'm calling by the old because it's like this translation it calls them the New Fishman pirates, but in my head is the Neo Fishman pirates, which fan translations used. God damn it. But yeah, they're trying to take over the actual Fishman Island. And Fishmen, peace between humans and Fishmen is just fantasy. And then back in the forest, Sanji has some questions regarding Jinbei, because like kind of almost how it was built up, but back when Yosaku was talking about Jinbei, it was kind of like Sanji. I like how Sanji had the idea too, where he's like, I consider Jinbei as like the mastermind behind Arlong, but obviously we meet Jinbei and he's, it's pretty different. He's actually kind of cool, and so he has to explain himself, especially in the face of like learning Nami's that Nami suffered at his hands so badly. And of course, Nami has new perspective too, because I forget if I mentioned this, or I know someone in the comments mentioned it. I forget if I mentioned it, but Subodhi Park and Arlong Park, look the similarity there. Arlong's sort of desire to be like humans, in a way, or have what humans had, so to speak.
Oh no, Arlong is Envy from Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, well, I mean, he even kind of does, like, he's, I think I compared it to, like, Boa Hancock, sort of, in that he controls, his idea of, like, he knows this heavenly dragons, he knows, humans dominate, so his idea of, being like humans is also to dominate, so to speak. So, he took over the Subodhi, or the Kokoyashi, and which is also in an archipelago. I forget what the whole archipelago is called, though, which is why my mind defaulted to Subodhi. But yeah, so Jinbei starts to explain the backstory. Whitebeard helped, protect the island from pirates. The government is technically like allied with the Fishmen, but it doesn't mean a lot because the slavery still exists. And of course, Fisher Tiger, the hero who formed the Sun Pirates that attacked the Marijoa and those heavenly dragons. And one thing I forgot, I didn't actually know. It was talked about on my server. I mean, did you ever watch Toradora? I feel like you've watched it.
No, I have not yet.
Oh, it's popular. Okay, so it's popular, so I guess. Okay, well, because that doesn't really have a point, because I haven't seen it either. I was just thought about, because I wanted to point out that, like, the tiger and the dragon, that's pretty common. You would say, right? Like the fact that it's like there was like an old cover spread that looked like a ancient Japanese art that had Luffy fighting off a tiger and a dragon. It's imagery that comes up a lot, and someone posted sort of like the myth behind it, and it's actually like super relevant towards why the heavenly dragons are dragons and why Fisher Tiger is a tiger, so to speak, or is called Tiger. So basically the idea is that like the dragon is, of all the like animals, he is the strongest. But what happens is after being the strongest for so long, the dragon becomes sort of like complacent, and he becomes stagnant. He doesn't, and then the tiger then surpasses the dragon because he is the one who tries to fight the dragon, even though the dragon's supposed to be the strongest. And that's like so pure One Piece, like, or even a lot of shonen in general. But like Luffy can be seen as a tiger in that sense too, and so I think it's very deliberate that Oda calls Fisher Tiger the tiger and the heavenly dragons because the dragons are like the epitome of like stagnance that's actually fucking useless, even though it's at the top, but everyone like they see them as powerful even though they're just jokes. They're weak, they're just normal people. So it's like I just wanted to point that out because it's like that's that whole idea of like the the strong becoming complacent and that strength and being surpassed is like even in there was one episode of Brave You Starlight that I noticed the tiger and the dragon during one of the fights. It was the one pair. The one was like a rich girl and had the red-haired girl who was a childhood friend. The blue one was the dragon hypothetically, and the red one was the tiger. So I just noticed that
and Kaudako.
Sure, you remember? Yeah, okay, yeah, that was them. It's like I don't fucking remember names. I remember banana because that's an English word or not a Japanese word at least. But so it's like the tiger. I noticed that on the walls during the start of their fight, and I was like, oh hey, I just learned about this, and here it is, and it makes sense in this context. Neat. So yeah. Did you have anything else to say about the build-up, or shall we get into the flashback?
There are just, I guess, like certain lines that are delivered are interesting, but like the flashback explains them more. So, I mean, like there is one thing that Oda kind of like, I guess, just on the topic in general, Oda portrays, as he has done in the past with other topics, he portrays multiple different sides to things. Like even before the flashback starts, Jinbei says, "Oh, like the queen had her way and Fisher Tiger had his way," and he's not sure which of them was right, if either of them was like the correct way to do things. So like both both approaches kind of have their place.
Mm-hmm. See, there's things I want to say, but I can't because it involves a spoiler, sort of like it's kind of like esoteric might be the correct word. But no, there's definitely like their respective ideals are super interesting. How it sort of like folds into the story. All right, getting into the flashback. So we got Tiger. We see Tiger, and then it like flashes back even further. And then we get... Okay, I'm gonna be real here. I fucking love Queen Otohime so fucking much. Like, I love her. I really do. She's so good. Oh my god, like, I don't know specifically why, like, she's a good character, but, like, seeing her, it get emotional. Like, she's so good.
I mean, like, she presents a pretty strong ideology, but like it's I don't know, like it's a more pure like compared to Fisher Tiger, who is willing to go out and like he'll go out and, as he says, like he'll break unjust laws to do what needs to be done. But she like Otohime kind of seems like she tries to like stay within the rules and try to like just appeal more to empathy.
Right, she's trying to like, she's very. I definitely say like she's very idealistic, whereas Tiger, I'm not sure if I'd outright call him cynical. But at least, I mean, he's more so obviously than Otohime. Because she's like that. You know, you're right. She tries to work within the system. You know, which as we've stated, it's a broken system. But I mean, she does manage to win over a heavenly dragon to some degree. But yeah, she's this. But like, also like the fact that she's like weak, like physically, like she slaps the dude, and breaks her hand. Like she gets hurt more than him, but yet she continues. And she's such a crybaby, and oh my god, I love her. Oh my god. I hope this whole podcast is just me saying, "Oh my god, I love Otohime," because it might be. It fucking might be. Because the opening scene is good. Because she, she's. And like later afterwards, she preaches she's preaching to the crowd about the whole human thing, and she says that because it's like later on we see that we hear from Koala, the former slave, that the humans are afraid of fishmen because they don't know them and don't understand them, and Otohime says here that it kind of goes both ways. They don't understand the humans really either. So she wants to move the whole country to the surface or to emigrate, so that they can, be, because when she gets drunk and rants at everyone for being shit, she points out that why they could live anywhere on the seafloor. Why do they live in the place that has, the closest thing they have to a sun? Because it's literally under Marijoa. They're literally sitting under their oppressors. It's symbolic. They want to get out of that, or Otohime wants them to get out of that. But of course she's doing so by, trying to rely on the systems, and she kind of gets, she ultimately fails because of, as we find out, it's actually Hody who killed her, but I'll talk about that later. But again, she is very, very idealistic, and maybe that's why I like her, because she's so strong in her convictions. Even again, it's maybe a bit I don't know if I could be so idealistic, but the fact that she goes for I don't know, I really like her design for some reason. She's very different from a lot of the women Oda draws. He's not trying to make her super beautiful, so to speak, but I don't know, maybe that makes me like her anyway.
I think another part of her I guess maybe not her specifically, but like the part of this whole conflict is also kind of like partially included in this like opening little introductory scene with her, because like when she slaps the guy, she's like, "Oh, you shouldn't steal. Stealing is so bad." But then like she's also like, "Well, but you must also have suffered so much to like even go to this point, because like, you know, people don't just steal like, oh, I'm evil, I'm gonna go take something." Like he says like, I have like 10 kids or whatever, so he's like, he's got a family to take care of. And she's there's like a mix, because she's like, well, you can't steal because then that makes you part of the chain, the cycle of wrongdoing,
the cycle of hatred and vengeance.
But then she's also like, but I'm sorry, it's also our fault as it's like our fault as leaders for like pushing you to this point and blah blah blah. So like she, like, ideally, because, you know, she is the more idealistic one, she's like, oh, people shouldn't do these things, but it also, like, in that sort of, like, not hesitation, but, like, in that, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but, like, her perspective also kind of, like, takes into account the middle ground, because, like, I think like, if we were to, like, put these characters on a spectrum, you have, like, Otohime, who is the most idealistic, and she would prefer to do things within the rules and try to do things that way. And, you know, like, without fighting or bloodshed or anything like that.
Right.
Fisher Tiger is more like the middle ground, because his perspective, like, he wants the peace, he wants to do things for the greater good, but he is also willing to break unjust laws. So he's kind of the middle ground. Right. And then you have someone, and
he's also he's also unwilling to, like, he can't let go of his hatred for humans because he suffered as a slave at their hands. Like, so he wishes that he could be idealistic enough to believe in peace between the two, but he himself can't get over that hatred, so he sort of has no right to agree with Otohime, especially when his actions, like, he pissed off the heavenly dragons, the people who have the power over the system that Otohime wants to win over. Like, there's a, you know, he did his actions because he thought they were right, but, like, and that's also, it created a discrepancy. And of course, I know what you're gonna say. Go on. The other end of the spectrum from Otohime.
Yeah, because, like, then there's Arlong, who is you know, he is more out to oppress humans, and, like, but he also still has, like, he still cares about his Fishman, and, like,
Fishman, right.
As it comes up later, like, he has the experience of that oppression that has kind of shaped his perspective in the first place. I'd say, I don't know if, like...
Yeah, he did. Oh, because, like, even if it was for a short while, he was in Empel Down. You know, he was in, like, like, that place was a fucking shithole, okay? Like, he knows what it's like, what humans could be like at their worst, whereas Hody doesn't have much of anything, but go on.
Yeah, because I don't... I mean, you could say Hody is the complete other end of the spectrum, but I don't know if he's even on the spectrum, really, if he's kind of, like... Because, like, he's
burn
out
it all
to
down,
kind of, burn it all down. He's, you know, the complete... I don't know.
Well, see, I was maybe going to say, he would be the other, because he's the most cynical. All humans are irredeemable. People who like humans are irredeemable by proxy. Like, that's how more cynical can you get.
Yeah,
like,
I guess that is on the spectrum, then. Like, because that's
and
the very...
he's like, instead of, like, you know, kill, it's like he doesn't want to literally kill everyone. Like, obviously he can't kill it, but he wants to kill, like, as many people as possible, damn near, like, any human who dares oppose them. And so it's like, I see, you know, what you mean by him not necessarily be on the spectrum, but I'd say he's there. Just like, he's a guy. He's Hody. So, but I definitely like how, like, because that's what, you know, kind of what I said earlier. Like, the arc isn't very Straw Hat focused, but, like, you know, what we do get is we get a conflict of all these characters. They all have their ideals, and they all go for those ideals. But, like, Otohime, I feel like, you know, she has the correct path, more or less. Like, you know, it is idealistic, but, you know, it's, you know, it's, I think, what, you know, could be done. Like, and she works towards it, and things are happening on that front. But at the same time, she doesn't have the charisma to rally the people, where Fisher Tiger does, but he doesn't have the path, so to speak. Like, he doesn't see eye to eye with Otohime. So it's like a hypothetical, like, you know, merge of the two would be ideal, but unfortunately they're two different sides to the thing.
And I think there's also a bit of a drawback to Otohime's approach, because, like, we see like, when they talk about like, when the people go up to her and they're like, well, how many petitions or how many signatures or whatever do you have? And she's like, oh, I have 1,000 out of the population of 5 million or whatever. So, like, I don't want to say that she doesn't get results, but, like, perhaps not like you said, she doesn't have the charisma, so perhaps like not enough to really like motivate the cause. Whereas like someone like Fisher Tiger kind of goes out and does, and that like he becomes kind of I don't want to, maybe not the hero of the people, but like he's the one that people kind of look to and are able to kind of like
he's the one who gets idolized as he's the hero adventurer Fisher Tiger, and Arlong even leans into that when he comes up with the fake story that makes him look more like a hero later on in the flashback because he lies about the blood transfusion thing. Or go on, you were gonna say something?
But yeah, I guess part of what I wanted to say with the way that Oda handles this is like it would be very easy to kind of glorify Otohime's perspective as like the correct one, because like we do see that some of Fisher Tiger's actions have kind of repercussions on what she's trying to do, but at the same time there are some benefits that come out of Fisher Tiger's actions to, you know, kind of buck the system a bit. So
yeah, right. Like he saves people. Like he saved like Hancock, who, you know, she's helping Luffy. Like he saved the Fishman, who he saved. Like Aladdin was a slave, and now he's a ship doctor on the Sun Pirate. So it's like, yeah, he saved actual people. And yeah, the system, like what they talk about how broken the system is, where it's like, you know, it's a crime to free slaves, and you know it's fine to sell them. Like I think Jinbei was talking about how like that's because that's really fucked up. Like. So it's like you could think like maybe Otohime's path will eventually end Fishman's slavery, but at the same time it's going to be a slow road to walk, and how many people will suffer and die in those conditions in the meantime. Like, so it's like I mean that aspect specifically wasn't necessarily like touched upon. So yeah, I definitely see what, you know, glorifying Otohime's way, but it's like
because it is kind of. I don't want to say it'd be easy to take the moral high ground here, but like from that perspective, like sometimes some people I think can get so caught up in that idea, so that like somebody like Fisher Tiger who does go out and act in the way that he does, and like they can see that as kind of like, oh, you have lost the moral battle because you have gone out and done like you've
quote
acted
unquote
outside,
bad things.
or like acted outside of the system.
He's a pirate. He's an outlaw. That's bad. Quote suppose, you know, as like they'll think about it, like Fisher Tiger as like him and Luffy are the only like good pirates in the setting, the only pirates who've done good things, and that's because they go against the system. You know, like Luffy wouldn't have a bounty in the real world because he just like goes around and eats food and checks out shit. Like he doesn't do anything wrong unless you try to do him, you know, force your will onto him. And then he'll fight back. He'll push back. So or others, you know, and he'll defend. So yeah, but it's good.
So like it's not as simple. Like it doesn't boil the discussion down to like a few select points and kind of like stick to that. Like I don't know. I don't feel like just saying there is nuance here. Like really like I don't know. I can't think of any other way to kind of like convey the idea.
Mm-hmm. So yeah,
like it's not black and white, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. But yeah, moving on. We get to see Arlong and Jinbei as they were. Jinbei in particular looks a little different. Like his hair is styled differently. He's got his military uniform. And also it's like interesting. Like for some reason when like Fisher Tiger because they're like arguing and Fisher Tiger comes back and like Arlong's like smiling like a genuine like happy smile, and you don't like see that on his face, but it's like, so it's just like it's, you know, it's different, but I like that because it's like, yeah, Arlong's happy. Maybe he I don't know, it's like seeing like the whole Fishman shit. I'm like, you know, I just maybe things could have been different for Arlong in a different time, but it's, you know, like, because that's the thing, he does like love his Fishman, so like even if he's like a shitbag towards and killed fucking Belmare and made me cry, at least, you know, it's like, yeah, at least he does it out of love for Fishman, whereas Hody's just a piece of shit. But yeah, so because of the slaves Fisher Tiger freed, they all take on the sun tattoo to hide, you know, the real slaves, and they take up the pirate flag. Also, I want to point out something, because Shirahoshi, as like a little baby, she's like still giant.
Yeah.
But she's also really, really adorable. Like, I don't, just the blush on her cheeks. She's just cute. And I don't know, something about it being giant is just fun, because it's like she's just a big baby. I mean, so yeah, nothing's changed in 15 years. She's just a big baby, right? No, that was a joke. So yeah, do get a scene where Tiger is talking to Otohime or Neptune, and Otohime is there, and he says like, on my last journey I saw human nature. Being a slave is like a living hell. So he's not going to unify himself with the Fishman people. He's going to fight because he can't stand the idea of slavery. And of course, in doing that, he's separating the people and their hearts from Otohime. But yeah, the Sun Pirates, they're fighting, but like they're still I guess I kind of thought that was interesting because it's like, we know the bad sides of the humans. They keep slaves and shit. So Tiger tries to keep like a moral high ground in that they will not kill humans. And I think even when Tiger gets arrested, his crimes are, it's like freeing the slaves and resisting arrest. Like, in what fucking world should those be like crimes? Or no, it's assault, it's escaping being a slave, and I think there was a fan translation that said resisting arrest instead of assault. But it's like, I think that translation gets at the issue more, because it's like he's resisting arrest for escaping fucking slavery. Like, God, a system that allows slavery is just not good. So yeah, he's trying to keep the moral high ground over people, because like, yeah, none of the Sun Pirates murdered. So they kept on to that, but not that it really helped. They still got Tiger still got killed. Oh yeah, and then they meet Koala, the slave girl, who she's been heavily traumatized by being a slave. But so yeah, I guess this is the positive side to Tiger's road, where it's like, this was suffering that was happening that would still be going on if not for Tiger saving her. And now we see, because she's still like so. She's like cleaning stuff up because of the trauma that she had as a slave.
The
but
panels
now,
where she's just like constantly smiling through everything. It's like so uncomfortable to look at.
Like in fucking like how many pages? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like 5 pages. He makes this character. Like you just get her entire like deal, and then the catharsis when she finally cries and allows herself to be weak because she's no longer, her life isn't on the line. She's free, and oh god, it's good. And of course, she gets a brand of her own, like a human with the Sun Pirate tattoo, and but yeah, so it's like, yeah, and so that I didn't think about that when reading it until you said something, but yeah, that I think that leans a little bit into that, so yeah, that's good.
And I mean, like, there is a common ground between them, because like, yeah, I believe the Sun Pirates up to that point were like all fishmen. Like, I think that was their thing. But
yeah,
like, here's another character who is not a fishman, but has gone through a similar or the same experience of like, they were all slaves. So like, she gets like branded as a Sun Pirate. So like that's something that connects them.
Yes, right. The system is wrong, but it's not just affecting fishmen too. So, and in freeing, because Fisher Tiger specifically freed people of any race. Like if he freed the Kuja Amazons, he freed humans. He probably freed, I don't know, giants and whatever other. We saw the race list. Like there's like long arms and long legs. Probably freed some of them too. I don't see why not. So yeah, and they do eventually take her home. But
before that, I do think there was one kind of, I don't know, powerful panel or a couple of panels, I guess, where Jinbei is like talking to her because she's like, I forget what had happened, what the scene was, but he's like, is it because we're pirates? Is that why they're afraid of us? And she replies like, it's because they don't know anything. Like that's why they're afraid of the fishmen. And so Jinbei asks, will things change if they get to know us? And then there's no response because like she's distracted with. So like I think that says playing a game, I think that says a lot, because like it's like, will things change? I don't know. They might not. It depends on the person. Depends on the people. Ugh. Right, because obviously some people like I don't see most of the Heavenly Dragons changing because like they benefit so much from the system. It's like why would honestly like the Heavenly Dragons are fucking awful, but being one. Might like you get to do literally whatever you want. You have pure freedom. Like why it's like would anyone want to give that away? Like it's hard to imagine yes or no, just because it's obviously it's such an extreme situation. It's like I don't know if I could put myself in those shoes, but it's like living in easy comfort
for nothing. Like, I can at least connect with that much. So yeah, but it's like it's some people won't change, I don't think, but they're also a very small minority. There's like 20 families that have existed. They formed the world government, and that's it. That's the the descendants of those families. Like, yeah. So who knows? But yeah, they do reach Koala's home island. There's one really cute set of panels where like Tiger is taking her to her town, and like Koala tries to hold his hand, and he's pushing her away, of course, because he's not a fan of humans, but she keeps trying to get closer, and she's so cute. and as Tiger walks away, he waves goodbye, and then the fucking Marines come in to arrest him because it was a fucking trap. Because they fuck the fucking people all over the Navy, because it's like he's a scary fishman who betrayed the Marines, God damn it. And then we get to the blood scene where we find out that Tiger was in fact a former slave, and he rejects having human blood inside him because he feels like his body might reject it just because he can never love humans. Like, even this one adorable little girl, like, he still couldn't bring himself to love her. Like, so even though he understands, like, yeah, human, like, he even says, like, there's plenty of compassionate humans in the world, and he doesn't like that he doesn't want to leave hatred as a legacy, but he can't stop hating. So it's like, so that kind of like, I guess that answers Jinbei's question, and just from the other side, in that, because that's the thing, is like, so here's an important thing, because like you said that there are similarities to Tiger and Otohime's like ideals, but in that, I think they also have similar failings. And Tiger sort of like hints at that, because like Jinbei says, like, will humans ever understand fishmen? But the fishmen don't understand humans necessarily either. And like, but it's also that like the point is that the fishmen have their own darkness, because that's what Hody is. Hody, like, through being idealistic, like, because Fisher Tiger tries to hold the moral high ground over humans, and it tries to ignore his hatred, because he'd probably love to kill humans because of especially the bad ones, because of the hatred, but he refuses to hate, or he refuses to fall to that hate, rather, even though he can't move on from that hate. And then Otohime, she's again super idealistic, so they all sort of like ignore or dismiss the shadows of the fishmen, and that leads to Hody Jones. So that's kind of how, like, there's so much idealism that it ends up being a bit of a failing, because they're only looking at humans and the human relation to fishmen, not the fishmen and their problems themselves. Because they had this whole slum, the Fishman district, that Hody abused and formed a massive army from that. Like, that was like 100,000 men that would have easily conquered the whole rest of Fishman Island if Hody had his way. Like, all because they looked over that darkness of the Fishman people. So it's like, they can't. Thought that was interesting. But anyway, Arlon, did you have other things to say about Fisher Tiger?
I don't know. There's a lot I could say, but I don't know how much of it I want to say here. Because again, like, that's part fair. Of this, I still want to kind of go back and reread it to kind of figure out
a dense arc,
how everything falls into place.
Or go on, yeah.
And then
how everything. Because I kind of want to reread it too. It's good. Well, I was gonna say, you're also sort of like pressed because you were like working on a video up to, like, you wanted to make sure it came out in 2018, so you were working on that to like the last minute, and then it's like, oh yeah, we're recording on the 2nd, so you're like, I have to read 6 volumes on New Year's Day, or 6+, give or take, maybe 7. So it's like you kind of, I don't know, how did you have trouble reading through everything, or like were you up at late, or what?
I mean, that wasn't really the problem. Like, yeah, I did have to read most of it in one gotcha. Shot, which I don't know, maybe doesn't help, but like, it is a dense arc with, and like, I don't know, there's very real world applications I could talk about with all this, but I don't know how much of that I want to include here.
Yeah.
And like I don't know, thinking of like how it all plays together. Like, I obviously didn't know what was going to happen in this arc. This is my first reading.
Yeah, that's
so,
the
like,
thing. It's like,
now that I know like what the ending of the arc is, I'd want to go back and figure out like how everything connects together.
Yes.
To give like a full comprehensive stance on it. But like, I do find it interesting that, you do have someone in the position of Fisher Tiger who, even despite the fact that he doesn't kill humans, and like he tries to kind of rise above his own hatred of them. He can't really do that, and like, can you really fault him for that? Because like they made him a slave, and like, you know, he has very real traumatic experiences caused by, and like ideally people would like, that's I guess like the I don't want to say heroic, but like that's the idealistic story is, oh, the characters overcome their hatred in their past, and like they move beyond that. But can you really fault someone for not being able to do that? Like, I mean, in the case of
like, we've seen what it's like to live as a slave. Like, it's not, or in the story, it's
like
rough.
There are negative sides to that. Like there are characters like Arlong and Hody who like take that and they like weaponize their hatred, but you do have someone like Fisher Tiger who, yeah, he might not ever be able to kind of get over that hatred, and that's what kills him in the end. But he doesn't take that out on, like, the Fishman, I guess, kind of suffer, like, for reasons you had said earlier, because he doesn't really confront that part of it, but like he doesn't take that out on the people.
Yes, he's not like he's can't move past his hatred, and it does kill him, but he's not like a negative force on the world for it. Like, he's just like, that's the thing. After freeing the slaves, like, he doesn't really accomplish anything after that. He keeps them free, pretty much. Like, ultimately, the one who actually frees them, quote unquote, is Jinbei, because he becomes a warlord. You know, he's able to exist in the system in a way that allows for the fishmen under him to be like free from the law, because that's what a warlord is. It's one who submits to the government and becomes free from the free from being a criminal, rather, because that's the thing. It's like, not that they can do whatever they want, so yeah, in a way, it's Jinbei who sort of like moves forward where Fisher Tiger couldn't. Because of course Jinbei was probably stronger because he was the one who got the higher bounty after Tiger died. So I only just realized that.
Yeah, because then there is also something to be said about like how much can one person really do. Like, you can, because like there are systems in place that need to be kind of overcome, and generations of how this was built upon, because some people are just raised certain ways and they don't know any better, like the celestial dragons. Like, they're just raised to believe that they are the cream of the crop, the top of the world, that they are elite, or the nobility. In the nobility, like I mentioned, the one little girl who was told by her dad in the Goa flashback that like, why are they trash? Why don't they just move out of being trash? Or why can't they just be nobles like us? And well, they weren't born nobles. And silly trash people not being like, they're just like raised in it, and that's all they know. So yeah. It's like that Hody's almost like the inverse of that, because he was only raised in the Fishman Island, where they revered these people who hated humans. Yes. And because that's it's good. I feel like I had something else to say. Hopefully I'll remember by the end of the arc. But Arlong is pissed at Fisher Tiger's death, because he chose to die, but he still died a hero. He freed the slaves, but Arlong goes and gets wrecked by Borsellino, aka the future Admiral Kizaru, and he gets captured, and he spreads the fake story. And what I wanted to say earlier was that, because the whole arc, a big part of the arc is understanding, and I thought it was interesting that Arlong spreads a fake story about Fisher Tiger, because like, in sort of like making the story that demonizes the humans and glorifies Fisher Tiger, he sort of distances the world from understanding Fisher Tiger, so to speak. Like, he wasn't as much of a hero as Arlong says he is. Like, so I just noted that. I don't know if I have anything more to say about that, but I thought it was interesting, an interesting note. Because that's what I want to say, is because you said you want to reread the arc. Like, I have more notes on this arc, like, per chapter, like the average, especially during the flashback. Like, my notes on each chapter are way more than normal. Like, I have, like, for reference, chapter 634, which happens during like the fight, right before the fighting and stuff. That was 38 words of notes. For chapter 623, which is during the flashback, was 173 words, so almost like 4 times as much. No more than 4 times as much. So it's like, on just one chapter, and I had that for almost every single chapter of the flashback had like a comparable amount of words. So it's like, I had a lot to say about the flashback. So yeah, it's definitely really interesting, or I found it interesting. So, so Jinbei
sends the royal family of the Fishman Island a letter about telling the truth about Tiger's hatred, about Tiger's fate, sort of. And Otohime sort of takes from that she's going to try harder. But it honestly fails even worse because like people love Tiger even more now because of that fake story, and that gets even more in the way of Otohime and her goal because they connect too much to the hero of Tiger. So yeah, I'm not. I need to think more on that. And like, oh, the part where like they take all the signatures from the box and she goes home to cry.
No.
I love Otohime so much. And then she gets drunk and rants about the kingdom. I love her. Oh man. And yeah, she basically says, if you guys want to, want your children to be free, if you, again, like they're literally living under their oppressors, so like they should overcome that obstacle and move forward and change the island for the better. And she's so good. She's so good. Oh man. So yeah, then Jinbei gets the offer to become a warlord of the sea, and chooses to take the offer, even if it means freeing Arlong. Though I always wonder if like maybe Jinbei has said like, yeah, I might be a warlord, but could you keep Arlong in prison? No, I always thought about that, but because that did turn out pretty bad. But yeah, Arlong, he wants to sort of take over, accomplish his goals and take over humans. And of course, by doing that, he went to the East Blue, the weakest sea, and tried to build an empire by, taking as much resources as he could from the, the area around where Nami lived. And then we saw where that happened like ages ago.
Yeah, another thing I think is interesting about this, the flashback, but like the arc in general is like, it does kind of make me, sympathize for Arlong a bit, even though like Arlong did, he's clearly not like not the ideal person, because like he still harbors a lot of hatred and he weaponizes that against people, and obviously that has tangible effects on Nami.
Yes.
But what this arc kind of does is, like it does portray that like he had the difference between him and someone like Hody, why Arlong is quote unquote better in some ways, is that like he has actually like gone through those experiences. So like there is a personal like there's a, I don't know, like it's not like he's just being kind of indoctrinated into this hatred like Hody, where he just like he doesn't have those experiences himself, but he just goes out and hurts people anyway. So like Arlong, as I said earlier, like with Fisher Tiger, like it's understandable for someone to not want to forgive the people who hurt them, who caused them some form of pain or trauma. But like in saying that though, like Nami doesn't hate him for being a fishman. Like, so you can be, like there are reasons why people can hate you, but like it's not like, I guess just because you kind of like have that, like maybe you have some sort of trauma or like you were oppressed or whatever, but like there's also like in the case of Arlong, like he's also a bad person for other reasons. Like Nami has other reasons to hate him.
Right. Well, because like she forgives Hachi even though he was complicit. Like, yeah, he was there the whole time, and he didn't try to help her or anything. He was a bad guy, but at least, he wasn't malicious. He wasn't, like, evil. He was just doing orders, more or less. And even then, like, he didn't do anything particularly wrong aside from, like, he helped oppress a nation for so. I don't, like, did he kill anyone? I don't know. Maybe, I mean, he might have defended himself, but like, yeah, he's again, not as bad as Arlong, and, Nami, he tried to do better after that whole incident, and so Nami found it in herself to forgive him. And yeah, Nami is actually really important because, like, yeah, like you said, she was basically kept as a slave, like, not as bad, considering, but like still she was oppressed. She was even though she tried to get out of it.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good point, because like if Arlong Park is like the Subodhi Park or whatever, then like Arlong, that was the place like, where the Fishman slaves were held. So then like Arlong ends up having someone like Nami who has to just kind of do his bidding, and really the rest of the people of that Orange Village or whatever it was called,
Yeah,
so, yeah,
they're all stuck there under his thumb, basically. Like, again, their conditions aren't as bad as like actual slaves on Sabaody or Marijoa, but Nami was basically his slave. And so he in that he's like, well, he is a fishman who's not really being that much better than humans, though obviously there's worse on both. There are worse humans and worse fishmen. But Nami is also, she shows the counterpoint to Fish a Tiger, in that she is someone who is able to move on past her hatred. She she doesn't hate fishmen because of one fish person. She recognizes that the whole race has its own circumstances and issues. Like, she's able to, like, whereas Tiger, like, he hated all humans. He knew that there were good ones and compassionate ones, but he couldn't move on from his hatred. So, but Nami was, and that's a really important contrast, I think.
Yeah, the opposite of, like, some people are good, but all people are bad, versus, like, not all fishmen are bad, but one or two or some can be.
Yeah. There's neither. Well, that's the thing, because they're as we see with the blood thing, they're not really that different. Like, obviously, there's circumstances for each race that lead to each having different paths and or options available to them. Like, fishmen just have it harder in life because regular humans don't, like, oh yeah, you might be a slave just because of your race. Like, that's doesn't happen. Well, I mean, it happens. There are human slaves, but it's not like as like proportional. Like, the fishmen live right under Sabaody and Marijoa, where they are kept as slaves. Like, humans can live anywhere. Fishmen don't live anywhere. That's the whole thing with Otohime. She wants to free them from that. And I think I had a point there, but I lost track of what I was saying. Nami was able to move on past her hate, and that's good. But yeah, let's moving on, because I am lost. A Heavenly Dragon ship crashes in Fishman Island because it's the Heavenly Dragon on it wanted to go back, and he wanted his slaves back. Honestly, for once I agree with Hody here, because he says, like, oh, it's a Heavenly Dragon, the worst kind of trash, and it's like, yeah, like, Kid basically said the same thing on Sabaody, and it's like, yeah, I kind of agree. The Heavenly Dragons are the worst, but it's so, we do kind of see, like, a test of the ideals, because it's like you have a fishman who, they're ready to kill the Heavenly Dragon and say, oh, he died in an accident, oh well. Because that's a pretty rare opportunity, the ability to kill a Heavenly Dragon and basically get away with it. But Otohime, even with this trash human being, still takes a bullet for him because, and the line she delivers, the children are watching. Like, it's a good moment. Because, she wants to keep the hatred from spreading to the kids, and so she's kind of like she's not fully addressing the hatred of the fishmen, but she is at least, sort of like charting the path for, like, this is how you prevent more Hodys from happening, because in spreading that hatred, like, which is, because that's the thing, is she never went to the fish. Did she ever preach her ideals in the Fishman district? Honestly, she'd probably, like, she'd need a few extra bodyguards, because they fucking hate humans down there. But, like, she didn't, I don't think we ever see her reaching out to those people. Like, she's only reaching out to the people in the regular Fishman Island, the people who do live under the light. So, yeah, I never thought about that.
And then the motherfucking celestial dragon still tries to shoot her anyway, even after she spared his life.
Well, I think he was, like, taking her as a hostage to try and save his own life from the slaves.
That doesn't make it Shirahoshi, any better.
No, it doesn't. He's still a piece of shit. It's not like he's, like, trying to kill her, like, randomly. He's still a piece of shit. Yeah. And of course, but that makes Shirahoshi freak out, and she awakens the reason I told you to wait on your One Piece video that you had in mind, because, the whole thing with NA's Lobby and Water 7 was weapons. And here we get introduced to a person who is, in fact, an ancient weapon, Poseidon. That was the one. She has the ability to speak to sea kings, because as mermaids can do with fish, as Jinbei can do with whale sharks, as Neptune can do with whales, and she can do it with the biggest, most dangerous animals in the world, or, there's so many of those fuckers in the Calm Belt, like, holy shit, she's dangerous. Oh, man. Like, I don't think this arc in particular had anything to add to that point about, like, responsibility and, weapons, because she is a weapon, but, she's barely aware of it, and she does use her power at the end of the arc. but it's not fully addressed. So I don't know if there's anything to add to the video, but I just wanted to say it, or that idea, that arc. But I just wanted to, it is I guess a potential way to add to the conversation if Oda decides to go that route.
Yeah.
Later.
There is another idea on this arc that, again, like, I would want to go back and reread it to kind of piece things together and see if there's more substance to the idea. But like, when the celestial dragon shows up, like, that does also kind of introduce the concept of like power. Like, when something like this exists,
they have the absolute power. Yes.
Yeah. So like,
go on.
some people have more privilege to act certain ways because they have power. So like, some people, like in this case, if you see it as like the eye for an eye or whatever, like if they kill the celestial dragon, there will be like repercussions for that. Or like when Fisher Tiger freed the slaves, like there were repercussions for that because the Fishmen did not have power like the people did. So.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
But I don't know. I can't think of any other like big examples of that, so which is why I'd want to go back and reread it.
Well, it's definitely like, I mean, it does, it continues to point out flaws of the system because there's just such an obviously inequality just for the fact of like they're fishmen, so they don't have any kind of power. Like if they that's the thing, if a human kills a fishman, no one cares, but if a fishman kills a human, now like I don't know, it just carries a different connotation with it just because of like how the world sees the races. Like fishmen are these scary fish people who weren't even classified as people 200 years ago. So man, I feel I'm only trying to keep it to the context of the story because I don't know enough about real life to confidently talk about it. So yeah,
but yeah, it's kind of hard to like not.
I know it's hard to not, but it's at the same time. I said 200 years ago, and I'm like, wait, what year was it 200 years ago? Because it was probably the 1800s, and America probably had slaves, and I'm like, yeah, it's probably very deliberate. Because a lot of people actually like try to allegorize this whole arc with specifically the sort of the American civil rights thing. Like there's comparisons of Martin Luther King Jr. to Otohime and Malcolm X to Fisher Tiger. I'm not going to outright say it's a deliberate allegory. Like if you want my stance on like allegory versus association, watch Lindsay Ellis's video on Bright, which is also about fantasy racism, kind of, though not quite a like full setting of fantasy racism, just sort of like an alternate Earth one. And she talks about a quote from J.R.R. Tolkien where he says like he didn't intend, he doesn't think Lord of the Rings is an allegory for race because he didn't intend for him to write that. So it's like so if you want to like come up with the association and make the argument, that's fine. Like, and it's kind of interesting, but at the same time, I don't necessarily like. And maybe Oda did use that as influence. But it's like
that's something I would want to like look into and research before like saying that. There's a definite connection here.
Right. Because there's other it's not like that. That's an American would understandably come to that conclusion because that's the one thing with regarding like systemic discrimination and racism that we're all like really familiar with because we're taught a lot about the civil rights movement in schools. I don't know how much what a Japanese student going through school would learn about it. I don't know what incidents of actual racism Oda researched before approaching it in his own story. So it's like, yeah, there's similarities and that can be interesting. But again, that's it, without like a something very direct. I would assume it's association, unless the author stated otherwise, and not that like devalues it. I just think people throw around the word allegory a bit too much when association doesn't, that's like the only difference is that like, did the author actually intend for it or is the reader getting out it, which goes into authorial intent, which Lindsay Ellis also did a video on recently. So it's a big conversation, but, so, I mean, I'm not going to like bitch at someone for using allegory. I just like, again, it's like, and there are differences cause I mean, in this one, I don't think Malcolm X assassinated? I don't think, because Tiger died first, so it's definitely not 1-to-1, which again doesn't devalue the association, but it definitely weakens it being an allegory, I think. But anyway, so yeah, the Sea King happens, the Shirahoshi's call. Vanderdecken knows about the legend that because apparently like his family, because he's Vanderdecken the Ninth, and his family was looking for Poseidon basically for his entire like his family line, and now he's finally found her, and the one who has that power, and so now we know why he wants to marry her, because he wants that power. in his family, I suppose. So, yeah, I mean, we knew he was a piece of shit, but now we know he's a power-grubbing piece of shit. Instead of just a fucking creep who has been wanting to marry a 15-year-old for like 10 years or so. Like, Jesus Christ, what a disgusting dude.
Vanderdecken is kind of a part of the arc that I'm not entirely sure on, like, how he fits into the themes, because, I mean, like, yeah, there's, I guess, a thing of, like, lineage there, because, like, he's Vanderdecken the Ninth.
Yeah, see, it's like,
so, like, I don't know.
I mean, I did a whole video on, like, plot device characters, and I think, I can think of some good plot device characters in One Piece. I would not particularly say Vanderdecken is a, noteworthy plot device character. Like, not that he's, like, bad per se, like, he doesn't, at least, but he doesn't add much either. He's like, he's got funny moments, he's still got a character with his own motivations, at least, but he is by and large a plot device, and I value a plot device in, like, how much do you take from this character being in the story. And yeah, Hody's mostly there. Like, his power is incredibly important. Like, his power is more important than for setting up certain moments than Hody or Vanderdecken ever was himself, more or less. So yeah, that's my stance on his character. But anyway, so yeah, Otohime saved the Heavenly Dragon, and she decides to go to the surface without bodyguards or her husband to as sort of like a test of faith, because because she's super weak. She broke her hand slapping someone. Like, she's very fragile. So, like, if this, if a weak fishman or mermaid can go up to the surface and be safe, like, a mermaid, super valuable, as a slave, like, but her idealism pays off because she goes up to the surface, incredibly weak, helpless, and fragile, yet also valuable, and she comes back with exactly what she wanted, a piece of paper that says, they can immigrate if they want, if enough of them want to. So, like, because she's so good. I'm sorry, I keep saying that, but it's true. I love her. So yeah, Otohime keeps trying, but this time, now that she's actually, now she's actually taken action, like, where it's like, because before she was just preaching, but now she's finally taken an action that shows her conviction more than, like, she went to I didn't think about that before, because, like, Fisher Tiger, he went to Marijoa with anger, and, he was as a slave, and he came out of it with anger, I should specify, whereas Otohime went there out of, idealism, and, both of them sort of, like, did what they wanted to. They both put in their effort, and they both came out victorious. But of course, unfortunately for Otohime, there's a bit of a caveat, but we'll get to him. There's also, we learn a bit more about because we find out more about it later, because there's also a prophecy with Noah, the Ark, the ship, that there's supposedly someone with the mermaid, the special mermaid who has the Poseidon ability, someone will find her and take Noah, and they will travel, guide her. He will guide her and change the world. So that's a prophecy that will come up later. But we do learn about that here. And then Otohime is her papers get burnt, her signature boxes get burnt, and she is assassinated. Damn it. I love her, but no! Otohime, no. It all happens so fast, too, which is kind of interesting. Like, it's just like, boom, oh shit.
Yeah, because all the signatures are burning up, and then, yeah.
Otohime's dying. And Shirahoshi's about to explode and summon a bunch of Sea Kings, and her brothers calm her down. And, she tells them to, don't, even though she was killed, like, don't, let the hatred consume you, and, they want to, keep moving forward, keep gathering signatures, and keep, taking that path to the sun, and she dies, and then it gets worse as the hitman is found, and Hody Jones reveals his identity as a human who killed the queen. He feeds all that hatred or he creates hatred, but, like, the beloved, like, Otohime literally did nothing wrong. She's, and yeah, she is pure in that, and so Hody uses that, he weaponizes that, and creates hatred where it might not have, like, where she was trying to fight against that. because he's a piece of fucking shit.
Yeah, and there's definitely more to say on like that idea of like feeding this idea of hatred.
In which we'll definitely talk about it. The one thing I thought was interesting was Neptune's reaction.
Yeah.
Because it's like, he locks himself into the prison tower because he's afraid of what he'll do if he doesn't lock himself up, because he needs time. Like, that's the thing. They mentioned how, they need time at the funeral to, let their wounds heal, and then they could restart the attempt to get to the surface. But Neptune, he's like, because he was a warrior, he said, like, he's fought and killed lots of humans, so he doesn't think that he has the right to fight alongside her Otohime, because he's impure, so to speak. I'm not which is neat. I'm not sure if I have anything to say on that. It's just an interesting like mentality of his, I suppose. Like, he's not trying to help her because he thinks his hands are dirty, basically. So and here he is locking himself up because he doesn't want to dirty them further. Neptune's good. Like, I like him.
Yeah, there's the panel where he's like, "Why am I not allowed to kill the one who murdered my wife?" And
right, like,
because like it's perfectly again, like reasonable for someone to like feel
to have those feelings, to have that hatred,
but like but it's like
he's got to suppress that.
It applies to both sides. Like, the way to get over this conflict would be to, in some ways you have to put those feelings aside and you have to overcome it. But like, it's even I feel like it's even worse like for the Fishmen in this case, because like they're the ones who are being oppressed, but they are the ones who like have to make this, like, the humans have to make a sacrifice to some degree too, but like it is they are the ones who have to take most of the burden. I hate it.
Right. The humans don't have the need to do anything. There's nothing pressing them. And that's kind of what, like, Hody wants to do. He wants to press the humans, to force them, to make them the oppressed, in a way. But, like, that's not necessarily the right path, because it's only going to cause more, that's what Neptune suggests, a cycle of hatred and murder.
Like, on the side of the humans, it is very hard in some ways to like if you do not have that experience, it's kind of hard to empathize and to put aside your privilege, and kind of like you have to consider like, oh, maybe you're wrong, and that's hard for people to do.
Yeah. It's rough. It's like I have a that's what I was going to mention earlier. I have a blog post, I think from Tumblr, that someone linked me. And it's basically from someone, you can actually read it, yay! Because it's someone who's watching the anime and like sort of commenting on every episode as they watch it, so there's no real spoilers. And they talked about one of the Hody episodes, and they actually, I thought it was interesting how they framed it, because they talked about how realistic Hody was in a sense. And there was also a response to that sort of framed the Hody Arlong thing really well, because it said that like, Hody, like, Arlong hates humans, but it's out of love for Fishman, but Hody is only hate. So, but yeah, we'll talk, because it was the episode that had the Hody revealing his, what humans had done to him. Which is a moment, but, sorry, I just remembered that, so, I'll link it in the description, and I'll link it to you, Mathwiz, so you can read it when you feel like it.
Yay, I can read something.
Yeah, so anyway, we get the funeral for the lovely Queen Otohime.
And it's so because like the kids can't even be there because like there's a
because it's too dangerous because of Vander fucking Decken, motherfucker. Like he was keeping Shirahoshi away from like that's when we now if you reread it, you're gonna see Shirahoshi at the praying to her mother at the grave. That she wasn't able to visit for 10 years because Vander Decken's a giant piece of shit.
And it also recontextualizes like why not Otohime, why Shirahoshi is like, in a way, like why she might be kind of a crybaby, because like she 10 years, like she never really had that chance to.
Yeah, exactly. She's been forced to be a child for 10 years, or so. It's like, yeah, she's just been doing nothing, just staying in a tower, eating and like nothing. Yeah, she doesn't seem to read, or she doesn't make music. She didn't find anything to occupy her time. She's just nothing, and it's sad. Oh man. So yeah, good flashback. One of my favorites in the series. Like I think I would just like randomly tear up while reading it, like not specifically at emotional moments. I would just like I would feel water in my eyes. I'd be like, what the fuck? Nothing's even happening right now. Like, I don't even know why. It's so I like it a lot.
Yeah, I feel like a difference between this flashback, like, because like I guess to compare this to the other flashback that I had really liked and like really made me think, like I was able to kind of pick up. I mean, this one was I don't know if the weapon one was any more subtle, but like just like the thing about like the weapon, like I'm sure there were real world connections you can make to it, but I feel like that's in a way like a little theoretical. Whereas like something like this is a very real thing, and like it's not really theoretical because, or at least like, you know, as me, someone who grows up in America, like I know that this is still an issue that this country has. So like, I don't want to say like, I don't know how to phrase it, like theoretical versus not, but like
I guess it's like you're more aware of the actual like real life, you know, backing behind these ideas. Like it's like, and it's also more personal. Like you've encountered, you know, black people in your life. Like I could, but when are you going to be responsible over a weapon? Like, you know, like a gun control or nukes, like where you're applying the NAS lobby and Water 7 ideas to, you know, like that's not something a normal person is going to have, like most people, especially in Japan where weapons are highly restricted. Like in America, that idea actually has a slight higher chance to connect to. But you know, it's something more personal, I think, to a lot of people. At least topic wise, which maybe that's also why some people don't like it, because we've talked about before, people don't like politics in their anime, you know.
Yeah, because
even though all anime is political,
in the case of something like this, like it makes you think of like, you know, like how like shitty aspects of the world. So like in the case of like America, like slavery ended in the 1800s. Like why is there still racism? But it's still there, and that sucks.
Yeah,
and like
that's what I mentioned earlier. Like this 200 years ago, like there's a very specific time frame that's very easy to connect to our, you know, to our real life. So especially as Westerners, you know, Americans. So
yeah, like it's a heavy arc.
Yeah, it's heavy
subject matter. But I think one of my favorite parts about this arc, which I mean it's a very Luffy thing, but like when they first get back from the flashback and like there's just Luffy asleep, not in like a racist, ignorant, oh I hate, but no, like because Luffy just doesn't care. He doesn't care, like he doesn't see discrimination. He just is Luffy. Yeah, he doesn't have like preconceptions or prejudice, as we talked about a lot. But prejudice is new, but it's like that goes into having preconceptions too. Like he doesn't care about what he's heard about the Fishman. Like their past doesn't matter to him. It was the same with the Nami flashback. He just walked away. The past doesn't matter because like he's just going to call it as he sees it. And that was even back to the Romance Dawn with Morgan. You know, he was the only one who refused to, you know, who just he refused to be complacent about like his ideas and like what he saw the world as, but instead, or like what he presumed the world to be, and then he just did it as he saw things. You know, Morgan wasn't actually great. He was just kind of a normal dude and very weak and beatable. But everyone else, you know, no one else did anything. They just had fears. So, so like that also, and
that's always been Luffy. So it's
like that could also kind of work back like. Since we've brought up Arlong so much, because he is very key to this arc.
Of course, yeah.
You know, when Luffy sees Arlong, he doesn't see the past, like the racism and the slavery that like Arlong had to go through. He doesn't see that. He just sees the acts that Arlong has done in the current time, and he's able to just judge him based on, you know, him being, you know, a shithead for what he did to Nami, or because he didn't even know what he did to Nami, but he just sees what he's doing, his actions in the present, in the now. So what
he did to Nami right then, Arlong made Nami cry. The years of suffering she suffered at his hands don't matter. He made Nami cry once. That's reason enough for Luffy to go there. Which one of you is Arlong? Like, oh yeah, so good.
Because like I don't know, because then, like, if we want to talk about, like, the cynical side of Hody, like, you know, there are some people who maybe believe that all humans are evil, like, people are just bad. But, like, even, like, in this case, like, just because, like, no matter what your experiences are, like, nothing you go through gives you, like, it might be reasonable for you to harbor negative feelings, but, like, nothing you go through gives you a reason to be just a shithead. And so, like, in the case of Arlong, him making Nami cry, like that's just bad. It doesn't matter what he has gone through.
Like Tiger couldn't move past his hate, but he was at least able to not be a shithead, to put it nicely, or to put it in a way that is funny.
I could probably choose a better word than that, and I probably should, but that's just kind of what's popping into my head at this point in time. But like the thing is, like, it's not like simple here. Like there are facets to it.
Right. It's not it's presenting I think it's presenting the ideas with, a light enough hand. Like, again, it's very blatant about some of its messages, which makes sense because it is a heavy arc regarding the ideas, but it's also presenting them with enough like tact, I suppose, to that it's not like
I feel like I want to have like a degree of being careful with how I phrase things, because like I obviously have a bit of privilege in that, like, I am white. I have not like experienced this kind of subject matter, so like I don't know. I just kind of want to.
Well, yeah, because it's like, see, that's the thing with One Piece is it's like framing some of the ideas, like, and talking about them, like especially when it gets into like even like the whole trying versus running away thing. It's like, what are my goals? Am I actually trying about, like, I'm thinking about my life and like looking in a mirror almost, and now I'm like thinking about like, oh yeah, what should the humans do in this situation? And I'm like, well, I'm a human in this situation, like in a similar situation, like, quote unquote. Oh, that was framed really badly actually. But not that. Or I'm not going to dwell on that, but yeah, so it's like, it's like, I guess, I don't know, something about One Piece, it's like, it's such a big story with so many ideas that, and I guess it's also because it connects to me personally, so it's like, there's a reason for that, and like, I do agree with a lot of the ideas, like, I did a whole video on family, because it gets me emotional, so, yeah,
So yeah, I think like this arc, along with like the Water 7 thing, these are the ones that, like, as I was reading it, just made me think a lot about stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting subject matter.
So maybe I'll look into it, and maybe I'll have a Fishman Island video.
So one of us is gonna do it, okay?
Yeah, I was gonna say one of us will probably do it.
Yeah, because it's a good arc. Yeah, don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Like, Fishman Island is good, and we've got more of it to discuss, because there's we've mentioned Hody, but we haven't really dug into. I mean, we mentioned a lot of him, but there's definitely a few things I have left to say, is how I should frame it. But anyway, moving on. So yeah, Jinbei finishes the flashback. He's basically responsible for freeing Arlong. But though, like he said, he would have stopped him if he knew about him, but Arlong was bribing the Marines and making sure that word didn't get out. And of course, Nami's able to move past her hatred. Like, she looks at the good. She, yeah, Arlong made me suffer, but I met some great people because of that. And so I'm just like, you mean me, right, Nami? And yeah, that's true, and yeah, she's able to move on. And Jinbei cries because he's like, oh, thank God, like, he wasn't hated.
So like, Nami is able to, like, she's able to move on without necessarily forgiving Arlong.
Right. She hates. Yeah, again, I don't see why she wouldn't hate Arlong. And if she met him now, I'd like to see her kick his ass. That would be great, because she's so much stronger now. But yeah, Jinbei cries because, not even though she suffered at the hands of Fishman, Nami didn't hate. Like, yeah, not, in another world, maybe Nami would have hated Jinbei just because of his race, and like, but now that's not the case. So, Nami's good. Nami is good.
Yeah, I think maybe there could be like. That's maybe like another little point that I could see people maybe having an issue with, is like, oh, Nami doesn't, like, because these pirates have like any sort of connection to Arlong at all. It's like, oh, Nami should have gotten a big fight against them to kind of get her revenge or whatever. But
yeah, but that's what, now they mention it like that, it's like, yeah, that'd be missing the point, because it's like, she doesn't hate Fishman, she's trying to save them alongside the other Straw Hats, And like, she still gets a good moment in here, even if she doesn't have like a specific one-on-one fight to. And even then, the one-on-one fights are like, they're just like, there's like one chapter setting up the one-on-one fights, and then one chapter of just like constant 2-page spreads of everyone winning the one-on-one fights. Like, it's not like, what is she missing out on? Yeah. Like, I would love to see more Robin and Nami fights, and it's kind of weird that they're both excluded here for some reason. But like, at the same time, they're not missing much in this specific arc, like, that doesn't necessarily excuse, like, I'd love to see them get more fights, but again, they're still good characters even without the fights. And yeah, Nami gets this great moment here. Robin gets stuff later with the Void Century where she's examining it, and Joy Boy. So it's like, yeah, there's still good stuff for all the Straw Hats even, but yeah, it just happens that these two don't fight for some reason. So yeah. So anyway, now that everything's sort of like hashed out regarding Nami and the Fishman, Jinbei, they go over the situation again. Hody, as he's trying to take over Fishman Island. But yeah, he wants to rule Fishman Island. He's bringing the fishmen from the Fishman district. He's got the king. He's ready to execute him. And he even has the list of people who support the Otohime from the castle now that they captured it. So he has a list of traitors, basically, people to kill, because Jesus fuck. And of course, he also wants to kill Luffy, who, the one who defeated Arlong. So, well, also, a powerful human with a high bounty. So, which did go up, of course, like, I'm sure you noticed, but it's like, because it went up to 400 because of, like, the war and the attack on Marineford afterwards. So, yeah, I forget if they mentioned that later. But, I know they mentioned the bounty change.
Yeah, because
he was
Jinbei
like,
had said something like, usually once they get up to, like, 300,000, they don't go much higher.
Yes. One thing to also mention with, like, subordinates and stuff is that they usually all the crimes are attributed to the captains. Like, you kind of see this with the Sun Pirates, because Jinbei ultimately had a higher bounty than Fisher Tiger just because he was strong, even though he didn't, like, actually free any slaves. But it's like when he was a subordinate Fisher Tiger, he had, like, a bounty of, like, 70 million. But it's like when Fisher Tiger died, they were like, whoa, this guy's even stronger, because, like, now as the captain, he was shining more. So just the captains usually get more credit, so to speak. Yeah, he mentioned this more recently because of a certain character in a more recent arc who's like a subordinate. But anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. Then then we get a bit of a scene where they have to come up with a plan to deal with Hody, and Luffy wants to go save his crewmates, obviously, but Jinbei wants Luffy to be a human and stop Hody, as not as a human oppressing fishmen, but as a hero of the fishmen people. But Luffy's Luffy. He wants to do his own thing, so they sort of have to come to a bit of a compromise.
I liked the little bit when they kind of flash back to this conversation, like as the fighting's happening, and there's like Luffy's like, well, I don't want to be a hero because like heroes have to do things like let's say there's a bunch of meat. Pirates have to. I want to eat the meat, but the heroes have to share the meat.
Heroes have to... Yes, that's such a good line.
And then Jinbei's just like, I'll feed you all the meat you want if you just do what I say.
And Luffy's like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, he just... yeah. Luffy's so good.
And then it comes back later, too, with Zoro, when he's like, heroes have to share the booze, but I want to drink all of it.
He says the same thing because the stupid ones think alike. But yeah, so Jinbei comes up with a plan. I also like in the flashback later to the scene later where he says that like he gives his whole plan, and then he's like, he's done it, and then he's like, one more thing, we need to come up with a name for the plan, and they're just like, no, let's go. Like, he's like, see, Jinbei is usually such a serious character, but that's like the only gag he's done in the series, because it's like, he's serious, like, he needs they need to go save the king, but they also need to come up with a name for their strategy. Like, it's so, I don't know, it's just a gag, but I always found it notable, because it's Jinbei, that's the thing, because he's always such a serious character.
Yeah, then plus, like, you had some there were some other moments, like when what's her name, the princess showed up, and she was like, and Jinbei's like, oh, she's here. Wait, she's here? What? So, like, you get some good, goofy expressions from Jinbei here, which we didn't really get to see in the war.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I guess a little different. That was him reacting, and this was him doing something goofy.
Oh, okay.
Which is, So, he does. Yeah, you're right. He didn't get a lot of, like, goofy reaction. That was a good, and it was a good reaction too. I mentioned that moment back when it happened. But yeah, Hody's continuous takeover. We see glimpses of his men and their abilities. We get a cut to the Straw Hats stuck in the palace as they try to escape. Okay, and I gotta say, of all the lieutenants, my favorite is definitely Zio, the striped one, because he's such a goofball. Like, he's just, like, I love later when he's fighting Brook, and Brook is stepping on his head, and he's like, haha, I am headbutting you very slowly, or something like that. Like, it's just the way he, like, reframes his, him suffering as, like, his secret attacks on everyone else is just funny.
Like when he gets stabbed and he's like, I dulled the edge of your sword.
I mean, he's not wrong, but God. But yeah, we see all the subordinates do stuff, and they defeat the army of Neptune's army. And Hody from the pills, he's undergone a bit of a design change. He's got white hair. He is Santa Claus now, which is officially a dated thing because it's not the original recording date anymore. Because I remember back, I said there's a character with white hair, and I was gonna be like, oh yeah, it's Hody Jones, it's Santa Claus, but nope, it's New Year's. Can't do that anymore. But yeah, then the princes try to fight. I think I had something to say about that. Did you have anything to say about the build-up?
No, I'm gonna be honest. Like, after the flashback, the fighting was less.
Yeah, no, it's fair.
Like, it was not the most interesting part of the arc, I guess. Like, I don't want to say it was bad, but like, it just wasn't as interesting.
There's definitely some things I had to say. And there's a shorter flashback later for Hody. But yeah, overall, there's just it's just a lot of stuff. Okay, okay, never mind, I was wrong. But yeah, the princes fight, and everyone gets captured, and Jinbei's plan comes into fruition when, Jinbei... See, all the fishmen and mermaids are, Shirahoshi, the royal family, and the rest of the royal family, Jinbei, are trapped, and so Luffy comes out to save the day. There's another big moment that happens. Hody reveals that he was the one who killed Otohime, and Shirahoshi reveals that she already knew that. What did you think about that?
I mean, yeah, that was also part of, like, what really recontextualized her attitude earlier, was, like, she already, like, knew what happened, but she couldn't say anything, and, like,
stuck in that tower for years and not being able to say a word.
And then, like, plus, like, yeah, she only had, like, the one friend she could talk to, the shark, but, like, it wasn't just, like, she is just a crybaby who is, like, awkward with interacting with people, but it's more like she also has, like, that I don't want to say backstory, but, like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, it's like, she had a reason to hate Hody, but like her mother said, don't hate the person who killed me, and she refuses to hate Hody for killing her, even though, like, that's a reasonable reason to hate someone, as we've said, but she chose not to, and that's like they said, like, like Luffy even says, like, whoa, you're stronger than I thought, and Jinbei's like, damn. Like,
and then Luffy goes from calling her Wimpy to Wimpy Hoshi. Oh.
Right. He's starting to recognize her as, strong, because she's not that much of a wimp, because that's something, like, that's hard, and she did it. And, like, stuck 10 years not being able to talk to anyone about it. But at the same time, because of that, she was able to sort of resist Hody. Because, like, Hody, because that's the thing. Shirahoshi, she is a kid. She's, if he, got her to see, to hate, then, he would sort of, like, justify himself in that way. But, Shirahoshi refused. And, like, it failed in a way because she'd known for so long already. Like, he was like, treating it like this big reveal, and Shirahoshi just like, yeah, I know. So, yeah. I know some people aren't satisfied with that moment, and I don't know. Okay, here's the thing. Fishman Island is one of the worst arcs in One Piece, and Hody Jones is one of the worst villains in manga. That's something you're not going. You'll hear sometimes.
Oh no, he's evil because he's just evil.
Yeah, like nothing, right? No motive. So he doesn't have a tragic backstory. He's bad. I guess these are Naruto fans. No, because I mean, it's like in the past I've definitely said, like, oh yeah, I'm not a fan of it. Like, oh, every villain in Naruto has a tragic backstory, but, like, reading it, I'm like, it's fine. It all works in the context of the narrative. And same for Hody not having a tragic backstory. Like, Alexander's videos on Genthru are a good watch, as are my plot device videos, since they actually had said a couple of the same things, like, mostly in focusing on meaning. And yeah, Hody is, like, to view Hody as a plot device character, like, he's great. Like, I definitely put him above Vanderdecken because he's perfectly, captures some of the themes in the conflict, and adds to the conflicts.
The thing with Hody is, like, maybe as, like, a character specifically, he's not super interesting, but, like, as a piece as a piece of a greater whole, I think, like without him, I feel like the arc isn't as effective.
Exactly. Right, like Fukaboshi pretty much spells it out. Like, Hody is he's the darkness of the Fishman that wasn't addressed by Otohime and Fisher Tiger. Well, maybe that's how I put it, but he's like, he's the shadows of the Fishman that wasn't, they didn't deal with. So it's like, and in doing that, like, and in sort of ignoring their own darkness. They let him he put it like he said that like they ignored, like they knew about it, like they all knew about the Fishman district, but no one addressed it. No one addressed this problem, and it turned into an issue. Like, you know, something grew out of that. You know, that like Otohime was slapping the thief on Fishman Island, but she wasn't going she wasn't going down to the Fishman district. She wasn't addressing the actual hatred, the actual, you know, the hate of the Fishman people, because they all really hated humans. So yeah, and Hody is sort of the result of that negligence, so to speak. So, you know, even if ultimately they're being oppressed, their systems are also not doing the right, you know, they're not addressing all the issues themselves. So yeah. But anyway, Luffy comes out and he says that, like, you know, because everyone's like, you know, they've done some bad things, like they didn't kidnap the mermaids and they haven't destroyed the island yet, but they did take over the castle. That's all on them. I mean, it was self-defense, but they did capture the castle. But Luffy says, you know, you decide whether, you know, he basically tells them to do what he does, you know, decide yourself. Don't let preconception or something you heard, get in the way of what you're seeing with your own two eyes. And what they see is a hero. Like, that's what Luffy doesn't want to be a hero, but that's what they take from him. At the end, they say they want the hero hats. They want to get a bunch of hero hats from the surface. Straw hats like Luffy. Because that's what... that's so good. Because, yeah, that's what the kids see. They don't see the hatred of Hody. They see a hero fighting to defend them from all dying. And, were you going to say something? I might have interrupted.
Well, yeah, because then it also kind of flips the prediction for the future on its head. Or does it? But, like how, Luffy will destroy Fishman Island. But then the kids are like, you know, we want Luffy to destroy Fishman Island. Because of,
Right. Like, Fukamoshi even said, destroy it all. You know, like, it does it, you know, it's, or if they need to move, you know, if the only way they can move forward is by destroying all their, you know, the bad, then maybe that's the way they go. But of course, Luffy has it, you know, he's going to protect everything. Though I'll definitely talk about that later, because that's like Luffy's biggest characterization, this chapter, or this arc rather. But,
see, I guess that is also kind of interesting now that I think about it this way. Because like, in a way, like, it doesn't happen, so it's almost like Oda would be saying that that's not the correct answer, but, like, if, like, that had happened and, like, you know, the island had been destroyed by everything, it would have been, like, erasing the past and kind of, like, just starting from scratch again, which...
Yeah, that would have been an interesting way to handle it, yeah.
But again, like, when we... Because, like... I don't know, because again, like, for someone like Fisher Tiger, he wasn't able to get over his hatred, but some other people were, so, like, could you see that as erasing the past? But, like, it's keeping the past in, like, it's accounting for the past, but also, like, moving on. See, again, this is where, like, I'd want to go back and, like, look over the arc again. Because you could make an argument, like, if that is what is being said, is that necessarily a good thing to just, like, pretend the past... Not pretend the past isn't there, but, like, I don't know. See, I'm...
Yeah, well, because, like, Luffy doesn't care about the past, but, you know, other characters do, and, well, we'll talk about that, because I definitely want to talk about the final finale of the Hody fight and sort of the finale of the arc, the climax, but, first, because I wanted to point out that, shit, I lost my train of thought, because it didn't have anything to do with
sorry.
But, no, it's fine. I'll just move on, because I forget what I wanted to say. But yeah, Luffy, you know, he's gonna let the you know, oh, no, it was about the future, the vision. Because Shyarly, like, everyone always says that, like, her visions are 100% accurate, and based on that sort of faith in that idea, Neptune tries to kidnap the Straw Hats, but when they actually, like, fight and defend them, like, Neptune even cries, like, why were we trying to capture them? So it's like, I remember being dissatisfied because I think I took the Shyarly's 100% accuracy, like, literally, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily what Oda says about future, like, the future in general, because it's like, minor spoiler, but there's a line that comes later where it's like, everyone has the power to change the future, and that's definitely more in line with how, like, the series views fate and such, because it's like, yeah, there are characters, it's I guess it's a bit like Naruto in that way, where it's like, yeah, the characters have, you know, some characters do have the ability to view the future. That's what observation is kind of like, you know, they see what someone is going to do and then they act on it, but they can, you know, sort of like, because they act, they're able to change, you know, so it's like, no, did anyone actually try to go against Shyarly's visions? You know, like there's maybe there's a reason they have faith in it, but at the same time, it's like maybe Luffy will destroy Fishman Island in the future. I find it kind of hard to believe that he's going back to Fishman Island for any reason, just because that's not how One Piece operates. Yeah. You know, they go forward, not back. So maybe he will, but if he doesn't, I think it's fine, because it's like he acted to change the future. He didn't want Fishman Island destroyed, so it's quite possible that Shyarly's just never had a prediction before because no one questioned her, no one no one challenged that.
But also, and,
as a result,
with the way that is framed, like, we kind of get a bit of an image and like this kind of vague claim that like, Luffy will destroy Fishman Island, but like you could, with like the context that we have, you could read that in different ways. Like maybe it's already destroyed and Luffy was just there, which is like kind of what happens. Like it's a destroyed Fishman Island and Luffy's the one standing, but like the destruction was also, like in this case, done by Hody. So like it wasn't even necessarily, like, the way I read it is like it wasn't necessarily that Luffy would destroy Fishman Island, but like based on like the one little image we get and what the character says, it's like Fishman Island gets destroyed and Luffy is, the last one standing.
Right. It's possible Shyarly misinterpreted her vision. Right. That's fair. Cause,
I did also.
He was very.
Actually, yeah. I'll let you finish your thought and then I'll chime in.
Well, yeah, because Luffy, like you said, he's just very close to the Luffy is tied to whether or not Fishman Island would be destroyed or not, and if she saw that, and she might have come up with the incorrect interpretation, but if that's the case, we didn't really see that, I don't know. We did just see a little bit of information, but you were gonna say something.
Well, yeah, because the other thing I kind of liked about how it was, although it was kind of like mixed framed this way, but like how, like at the start of the arc, she's like, oh, I don't really use my crystal ball anymore because she doesn't like knowing the future or whatever. And then like, I mean, she does look at it then, and then she destroys it at the end of the arc, but she's also still kind of afraid of the future. But like for me, because the way I've always seen it is like, if you don't know what the future holds, then as far as I'm concerned, like it can still be changed. But like once you this is why like I would never go look for like, there are these fortune tellers or whatever, like you can see like people who do that sort of thing. But like I feel like as soon as someone would know like what their future is, then then it's like you have some sort of an image to go off of, and then it's like, can you change that? Because then at this point you'll start thinking like, oh, certain actions I did will or won't lead to this, and like you might try to avoid it but accidentally stumble back into it anyway. So it's like just better just to not know, because then it's a blank canvas.
A lot of stories with fate play into that.
But then again, that's probably just more my reading. That probably didn't have enough text evidence to support it.
No, I get what you're saying, but because it's and like I said, I have extra context with my thoughts on the idea, so it's probably not fair to bring that up completely, but there's that line that I said that comes in later at some point, but you don't know the context around it. Maybe I'm wrong, and I don't know, but so anyway,
well, yeah, because like some of your ideas have sort of changed a bit too, like as we've gone along. So like even if I know a bit of this spoiler, maybe I'll think of it differently by the time we get to it. Who knows?
Yeah. That is true. And again, by the time we end, maybe some of my other ideas will change. Though they are coming more and more solid as we go along. Because I'm learning more as I reread the series and recontextualize some of what I know, and it's good. So anyway, the Straw Hats are ready to fight. Shirahoshi, they're gonna protect that that tiny bud that she protected for so long. That is something that sort of justifies the idealism. Because she's this pure child who decide what she didn't fall to that hatred, and they're gonna fight.
Yes.
Against Hody.
It's a good page.
Yes. And so you get a little moment where Hody reveals his true intentions. He's gonna go to Reverie, kill all the kings, and then he says like, oh yeah, since fishmen are above humans, I'll become Pirate King. And Luffy's like, whoa,
Pirate King.
Hold the fuck on. Well, first he knocks out like half of the soldiers with his Conqueror's Haki.
50,000
and fucking Hody's like, what the fuck? In just a glare, like, goddamn. And then he's like, Hody, you could play at being a regular king all you want, but there's only one Pirate King. Fuck yes, Luffy's like, he's gonna be, yeah, of course, he's serious about that, you know, that's Luffy, he's going to become Pirate King, and anyone else who says that is officially, you know, in his way of that goal. Oh man. And so they all bust out, they're fighting, they get to show off their new time skip powers. They're all just stronger and cooler, and it's neat. But yeah, it's just a bunch of fighting. First we've been Naruto with all the hatred and understanding, and now it's Bleach. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. With all and the
that's
fighting.
Why I have nothing to say.
That's good. See, I gotta thank the voters who decided for us to read Bleach before One Piece, because it was worth it for that moment. Because that wouldn't have worked if we read One Piece first. So yeah, Frankie made a mech. Though I love how fucking useless the mech actually is, because like half of his attacks he only accomplishes because he comes out of the cockpit and does it himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the callback though when he was like docking, and then it's like Usopp and Chopper were just like docking, and it's the callback to the arc Thriller Bark.
The pirate emperor. Yes. They're super. That Robin didn't want to take part in. Though speaking of that, there's a running gag where it's like, boys always think that the robots and shit are like the hypest shit ever, but then it'll always cut to like Robin or Nami or some girl just like looking on, just like unamused, because. So I guess Oda's sex is all, because girls can never like cool robots.
Oh, no.
No, One Piece is ruined, but it's a fun gag. But yeah, it sets up all the fights between all the Straw Hats and the lieutenants.
Well, actually, it's not just them, because like Zoro doesn't care.
No, that's true. There are guys that don't care, but yeah. But yeah, Luffy goes in to fight Hody, and I gotta pick up my next volume because we're moving along. But yeah, so as they're fighting, the square suddenly becomes dark as Noah's shadow overtakes, because Vanderdecken is deciding to destroy the island. Yeah. Because again, he can't get Shirahoshi. No one can have her.
I will also say that like, as the fights are going on, Zoro just gets a lot of cool one-liners, which I guess he normally does. But like, I like
he's
when he
cool,
makes that tornado thing with his swords, and then the one guy is like, "How far is it gonna chase us?" And Zoro says, "To the pits of hell." And then it's almost like good. Cheesy. What's the word? Like, it's one of those like blockbuster lines where someone does something cool and then they just like gotta look like a badass. But like, I love that kind of stuff.
That's good. You're right. Yeah, and he gets a couple other ones later, like when he's fighting Hyodo. He's like, well, because he calls Hyodo like a frog in a small pond, kind of sort of like Mihawk was saying to him back in the East Blue, because Zoro's like Hyodo's probably stayed on Fishman Island his whole life, just like Zoro was in the East Blue his whole life, and then but now he's acting as the Mihawk to Hyodo, and you ain't shit, and they just fucking destroys him, of course, in the fight.
Yeah, and he's like, you're not even worth killing time, which is just it's good, because it's even like you a lot of the time you'll get that you're not worth killing, but it's like you're not worth killing time, which just like takes it even further.
Oh man, and I also I like the moment with Chopper where he's like oh hey Chopper, you look like a real monster now, like he's just being a big bro to Chopper, and it's cute. Like he was kind of like that in Davy Backfight when he's like telling Chopper to be a man, and when Chopper's crying about not being a Straw Hat anymore, and Zoro's just like, we'll save you, shut up, and Chopper, he sniffles and he holds back those tears, and they just have a good little thing going on, and it's just been like small, but it's really good. So anyway, since Shirahoshi is being targeted by Noah, she decides to let her, to go, deflect Noah. But Luffy, of course, he has to go protect her because she's too weak. And that sort of sets up the fight between Luffy and Hody. I think that's all to really cover, right? The fight between Luffy and Hody and all the other fights.
Yeah, because like,
I can't think of anything major.
Like a lot of the stuff with the Straw Hats is just kind of like fights.
Yeah,
there aren't really any character beats.
Because it's kind of different, because it's like the Straw Hats are like kind of doing stuff sort of in the square on Fishman Island, and Luffy gets his fight against Hody and beats Hody, and then the other Straw Hats get their fights. It's like completely reversed from normal, because normally Luffy's the last one who gets to fight. And like he finishes the job and he finishes the day, but this time it's the Straw Hat to finish everything. So yeah, a little different. So yeah, I guess let's talk about Luffy versus Hody. Did you have any particular thoughts about it?
I mean, you do get the part where, because it is, I guess, like the mechanics of this could be interesting, because like you said, there are only so many ways like you can handicap these characters now, but like this is one of them, like fight at the bottom of the ocean.
Right. Yeah, like that's the thing. Luffy's like, well, Hody's endurance is ridiculous, as I think Luffy points out. Like, man, this guy is like, he should get like 100 million bounty just on endurance alone.
But even then, like that's mostly just because of the drugs he's taken. Because like as you said, he gets cut down in one slice by Zoro, but here he's taken a bunch of shots because he's, he was popping pills earlier and he's on those steroids. Right.
And of course, Luffy's underwater in a bubble, so he's like less mobile. And if the bubble pops, he's dead. And he also has to protect Shirahoshi and Fukaboshi, so it's like he's being handicapped like 2 or 3 times, and he's still like tossing Hody around. So he's just like that much strong. Like honestly. Like, I wonder if, like, I mean, in this scenario, it would have been different, but I sometimes think, I think hypothetically, like I did last time, and I always wonder, like, what if Fishman Island, they went to Fishman Island and fought Hody without the time skip training, and I wonder if Luffy could have beaten Hody before. It would have been a much harder fight if he did, because but it's like, it's just like, I'm power scaling, that's all I'm doing, okay, I'm sorry.
But I thought power scaling
I also really like the panel
bad.
where, like... It's fun, it's just don't take it so seriously. But anyway, so yeah, Luffy, I like the panel where like Luffy's in the bubble and you see Hody's shadow above him. Like, that's a really good panel. Like, in my mind, that panel is like way bigger, like it's like half a page, but in reality it's only like, it's just like less than a third of a page, which is so weird to me, because I'm just like, because my memory is like that panel is so much more than it really is, so I don't know why. It's interesting, a reaction, I guess, but yeah, the fighting, like, they have a, they're both doing a lot. Like, Hody's got his tricks and stuff. He kills Vanderdecken, and of course, like, the scenario is sort of like, and Luffy's got like, one thing that you would never catch in the English is his I don't know if they mentioned in SBS, but his Red Hawk, where he has like a fire punch.
Yeah.
The kanji for that are the same as Fire Fist. So it's like
translation,
a yes.
I did see Fire Fist in there. It was like oh no, maybe the final shot was like, it was like the mix of his normal attack, like the pistol, but also with Fire Fist. And I was like, but part of me is also like, how is he doing this? I mean, like, it's cool.
I just
because
assumed
like Ace.
I always just assume the same idea with Sanji. It's just friction.
Okay.
He goes fast because Sanji can do the same thing. So it's like, why not Luffy?
Gotta go fast.
Yes, gotta go fast. Speaking of gotta go fast, Sonic the Hedgehog movie this year. Yay! I only brought that up because you brought it up in your video at the end. That's the only reason I'm thinking about it. So is this your fault?
No.
So anyway, but yeah, I think I'm trying to remember, because a big part of the fight is the Noah, the ship, obviously, because like I like how the fight sort of winds down, because like Luffy gets bit really bad and he's bleeding. See, I'm trying to think. Do sharks have a thing where it's... No, I'm thinking of leeches. Never mind. Because leeches have like a chemical in their spit that makes you bleed even after you've removed the leech. But I don't think sharks have that. So because Luffy bled so much, he needed a transfusion, So, but yeah, so anyway, during the fighting, Fukaboshi helps, and he learns Hody Jones's true nature, which, as, I think we've mentioned it before, but it's like, he... Unlike, because we talked about we've talked about how, like, a lot of characters like Fisher Tiger or Shirahoshi, like, they have reasons to hate. Like, you understand, like, yeah, like, Fisher Tiger was a slave. Of course, he hates humans, but Hody doesn't have anything. And, yeah, again, a lot of people aren't satisfied with that. But I think it's perfect for the arc, because it's like, he's nothing. But he's the product of his environment, pretty much, of the Fishman district that hate against humans. Like, the flashback is like really good, like, because there's the one guy who's like, there's a suicide bomber who like blew up one of the slave shops on the surface, and it's like, it's like, yeah, he killed himself and took out and took out like, but he killed some humans in it, but he's, at the same time, like, that was a mark against like the establishment, and like people, especially like that's a terrorist act, but people agree with terrorists, they are, and then they sympathize with terrorists, and then maybe they become terrorists. So it's kind of understandable, especially knowing how shitty the slave system is. It's like you can understand where Hody came up with that like mindset of like fuck humans, and because again, all these fishmen are glorifying that, and man, like the fucking shit where they're like fucking basically like a KKK almost. Like people compare that with the hoods, even though the hoods aren't pointed. I don't know why, but they're like going out and killing people who are being human sympathizers. Like they're just. And the part that gets me is when they're like they're like making it like out to be like a holy quest, like the heavens have chosen us and given us power, like like they think they're doing the right thing in just like this murder and terrorism and fucking conquering, and oh god, like I don't think the fact that Hody doesn't have like an actual, like, it's not that he a backstory, like he has a motivation, it's just not one fueled by tragedy. And that's interesting, especially, and like again in the post that I'm going to link, I liked how he frames it, because he talks about how I think I've already talked about this. Never mind. I'm just repeating myself.
Yeah, this is also it's also kind of emblematic of like why I want to when discussing things like this, I want to be like a little careful with like how I frame things, because like if you just say like, in this case, like, oh, there is racism, but you don't really like explain why it's there, then like this is kind of like the effect of that. Like when you just say that there is a divide and you talk about that, like you don't actually. So like in someone like this, like he gets this twisted view of it, because like he doesn't really have like the full sort of like context of the situation. He just thinks, oh, humans bad. There is.
Yeah, right. He's like, yeah, humans bad because they do bad things. They keep fishmen slaves. They have oppressed the fishmen people. So but he doesn't know like the whole he doesn't understand the full context. Like understanding being a bit how the characters think that they can cross that divide. Of course, though it's not an easy road.
Yeah, and it's also like there's also part of the cynicism to it too, because like if I discuss something like this, I don't want the end point to just be, oh, well, the world is just bad, people are bad, because like I obviously disagree with that. Yeah. And so even though like he seems like I could see why someone would read him like as a surface level, just evil because evil. But like there is a very like real world sort of well, I don't want to say that, because then it's just like One Piece feels real, but. I think am I making sense?
Sorry. No, I get what you mean. Yeah, it's because it's like, right, it is a goofy story told through exaggerated things, but it's still real ideas, very real. And Hody in particular is he is very exaggerated, but at the same time, like, yeah, he gets at something real, I think, because it's like the post that I keep mentioning, it frames it under sectarianism, like the separating people separating themselves into groups. And one point that I especially found was interesting, because he mentioned that like that he grew they, I don't actually know the gender of the writer, but they grew up in and knew a lot of people who hated groups of people, even though nothing personal had happened to them, because they grew up only know like that. Yeah, and it's like, and I see that shit online, like how many people like hate groups like, I don't know, furries. Like, okay, kind of a weird comparison, but like, I don't know, I've never had a furry do anything bad to me. I don't have a reason, like, I don't have a reason to hate them, but I see a lot of hate towards them, so it's like, weird example.
But yeah, I think it works.
Like, I understand why people don't like,
or even in the case of like when people will say, kind of we'll talk about like, but like, oh, sorry, I cut you off.
But well, at the same time, but like I had a friend in high school who was a furry. He wasn't weird about it. He just happened to have that fetish and mentioned it because it was funny to joke about it. But like, yeah, so I have a perspective where it's like I have no like, yeah, there's some shitty fucking furries out there. When I heard about the don't look it up if you are squeamish, please. Caro the Wolf had a controversy around him lately, and I felt nauseated. I felt sick. But I didn't let that, like, I chose not to let that color my perception of a group of people I never had really interacted with. Yeah, I know a lot of people like to focus on the gross stuff, but at the same time, they're just people. We don't know how many people are degenerate. Like, a lot of people have weird fetishes. I have kept my fetishes close to my chest when people ask on my Discord server. Like, I don't know. It's just I don't feel like I have a moral high ground to I don't care about, again, like I use Mr. Cynical's Lolicon video. I mentioned that one before. Like, I have my stances on it. Like, I'm not gonna hate a group of people and find a reason for them just because I don't even disagree. Like, it's not, as long as they don't do anything wrong, I don't care. That's my thing. And it's like, and looking to the story, like, Hody is someone who is doing something wrong. Like, it's not. Right, there's obviously, like, there's a reason for it, but I think I lost my point.
Well, yeah, like, there are bigger applications of this. There are smaller ones, like, even just in the case of, like, communities of certain shows. Like, some people will say, I hate the fandom of this show, but, like...
Yes! I wanted to say that, but at the same time, I didn't want to compare, like, racism to fandom. But at the same time, they're groups. They are, like, people get into fan base wars, and you're right. Yeah, that I mean,
like,
good.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to say that, like, it's comparing a minor thing to a more major thing. Like, I don't want to say that, I don't want to trivialize the grander scale of something like
that's the risk
racism,
I was,
but like, they're similar in principle. Is that what I want to say?
I guess I see what you're trying to say, at least, because it's like, there's sectarianism, as the post put it, where it's like groups of people divide. Tribalism is kind of, I don't know if that's actually the right word, but I would say that I've said that before, because where it's like you have tribes of shonen, because I feel like, okay, I know a lot of people liked my fairy tale series, but I'm glad I did it for the experience of doing it, and because, like, in doing, like, that, like, long stream of negative content, like, I don't really have a desire to do negative content of media anymore, and for a few reasons. But, like, one thing I kind of dislike about doing that is that I fed into the tribalism of shonen fans, because now there are people who don't like fairy tale and will shit on fairy tale fans. Like, one thing I never did in those videos was shit on fairy tale fans or Hiro Mashima himself. Like, I was disappointed that Hiro Mashima never grew as an author or writer, but I also said that, like, I understand why the fans of the series like this, because I was one myself. I was just disappointed, like, reading the series again and realizing it's not very good. So it's like, but I never, but even then, like, so I don't like the fact that, like, someone who doesn't like fairy tale fans, they would shit on them, even though, again, a fairy tale fan what did they do to you? Kind of like that. It's like, but they can use my videos as, like, a look how bad fairy tale is. Aren't all fairy tale fans stupid and dumb and sexist or whatever? Like, because, I don't know, they like a series that I did a kind of feminist critique of the series on, so it's like, I mean, yeah. So it's like, I get what you mean about the small scale and the big scale, because it's like, you can apply some of the ideas, though, again, not to trivialize, that's my risk in, the risk in that, so, but yeah, I get what you mean.
Like, in certain ways, like, hate is hate. It could start out small, but it gets to something bigger.
Right. So,
but Hody's a fine villain. He's pretty good to I mean, not a good person, but, like, to the themes of the arc, he works.
Again, like, I don't, like, giving him a tragic backstory I don't think it would make him better, because it would it would muddle the idea that's trying to be gotten across here. But anyway, to change topics to a completely different idea, because I want to talk about sort of the ending of the ending of the fight, kind of, because he beats Hody, and then he's, like, trying to destroy Noah. And I thought that was interesting because a bit early in the arc, Luffy said that, like, he would protect everything. Now, this is going to be really relevant to sort of, like, his character arc throughout the story, especially, like, the war in Sabaody, because, like, Luffy's, like, this is the thing I realized only recently, where with the Sabaody thing, because, like, Luffy wants to protect his crew. They're his friends, they're his family, and he'll do whatever he can to protect them. And so, like, with Aokiji, like, he's this admiral, he has no idea how strong he is, but he decides to fight anyway, because, like, while he's fighting Aokiji, everyone else can run behind him. Like, that's almost directly comparable to Ace with Blue Jam. Like, he didn't run away from Blue Jam because everyone else was running from behind him, so he had to distract the one guy, right? So, but then with Sabaody, I realized, like, they split into 3 groups after encountering 2 characters, Sentomaru and the Pacifista, because Kizaru didn't show up until after they ran away. So, like, what's important there is, like, Luffy wants to protect everyone. He wants to protect his crew. Like, and he needs to be strong enough to do that, but because he wasn't strong, he split his crew into 3 groups to avoid 2 people. Like, ideally, like, assuming the situation didn't change, like, like, Luffy, like, they couldn't get everyone, basically. That one group would be able to escape free, but of course Kizaru showed up and ruined that. But like what I took from that is like Luffy's not like he relies on his crew and that like Nami's the navigator, Sanji's the cook. Like he even said back in the Arlong arc, Luffy can't cook, he can't navigate, he can't use a sword, he can't lie, but he can fight. And so, but I don't think he relies on his crew to protect themselves because Luffy is the strongest. He has the greatest ambitions. So he didn't choose to fight alongside his crew. He chose to try and protect them by running. And I think that desire to protect is interesting because, and sort of like now in Fishman Island, that's important because Luffy said that he would protect everything. He would protect Fishman Island and his crew, of course, but he didn't protect Noah. He wasn't going to protect he was going to sacrifice this promise, this history of the Fishman, because of course he's Luffy, he doesn't particularly care. But so if he destroyed Noah, like the Sea Kings who stopped Noah, they even said that Shirahoshi, they said that Luffy would destroy, like he would have destroyed Noah if he'd continued, but they stopped it, so he didn't need to. And what's important about that is Shirahoshi, because basically Luffy was only able to protect everything, including Noah, when he relied on when someone else stepped in, when Luffy didn't fight alone anymore, because that's kind of how I see it with Sabaody. He didn't rely on his crew to fight. He couldn't trust them to protect themselves because he always had to do the protecting. So he decided to run away. And that didn't work out. They failed to get to the New World. They failed to where all the other supernovas fought Kizaru and the pacifistas. And even though they lost, like Hawkins or Apu and Uroge and Drake especially, because they fought Kizaru, they all made it to the New World anyway because they chose to fight. And that goes back to the other idea that I'm a little tired of talking about. But anyway, so yeah, that's kind of what I took from the whole Shirahoshi thing, because it's like Luffy. This is definitely going to come up later. But Luffy's able. He's got to be more able to rely on his crew because if they can't keep up with them, then they're not fit to be on the crew of the Pirate King. And so Luffy sort of trying to protect them and help make sure it's understandable. I absolutely understand why he did that, but it also kind of it's a weakness because he needs to be able to rely on others because the Pirate King also can't do it alone, so to speak. And or at least I don't think. Well, see, that goes into talking about more. I'll just leave it there. But that's what I took from the ending because Shirahoshi, the weak one who Luffy would never rely on, ultimately helps Luffy protect everything. I wouldn't go as far as to say Luffy would, because Luffy was bleeding out of his side, and attacking Noah so rapidly made it worse, which is why he needed a transfusion. I'm not going to say hypothetically whether or not he would have died if he destroyed Noah. Probably, I don't know. I don't see it. But he would have put himself more at risk because he was bleeding. So yeah, that's. But we'll get to that scene later. Hopefully, I'm making sense because I don't know.
I'm not entirely sure I follow, but
okay. I was just talking about because I guess the theme of I don't know. Where do you have a disagreement?
No, it's not that I disagree. It's just more again, I feel like I want to reread this arc as a whole to I don't know. I'm not entirely sure where I.
Well, I'm referring to other.
Or just the I guess the story in general. This would be something I might be able to process a little better on a reread.
Right. Well, and again, I think I'm comparing to other later things in my head, so it'll be easy to talk about later. So just keep it in mind, I suppose. Because the Straw Hats did also kind of recognize that. During Thriller Bark, they even said we rely on Luffy too much. But as I pointed out, Luffy was the only one fighting Moria at the end. Shadow's Asgard. They all fought Oars, but then at the end, when the chips were down and things were, they were all about to die, or the ones without shadows were at risk. Luffy was the one fighting. Not the rest of the Straw Hats, and they recognized that and said we need to become stronger so that Luffy can rely on them. And so we're kind of seeing advancement on that front through the Shirahoshi moment, is what I'm saying. In that, Luffy wants to protect everything, but even because that's the thing, he's stronger. He's strong enough to destroy Noah. He could have done it, but but strength doesn't necessarily mean you'll be able to protect everything. So I think, again, I think that's important for various reasons. But let's move on to the other fights. I think. Because again, I talked about Sabaody again. Fuck, I'm gonna do that for the rest of the goddamn podcast. Help me. Oh man. So, did you have anything to say about the fights, the other fights? Because there's some little moments there, as all the everyone gets the shit beaten out of them, all the Fishman pirates. It's cool seeing their new stuff.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I think I basically covered everything I want to cover with those fights.
Yeah. Well, a couple little things I liked. I like how Usopp says that, like, he's trying to make his, like, now he says that, oh, I'll beat you in 4 moves. And he's like, man, in the past I would have told a whopper of a lie, but now it's true. Like, he's become strong enough that he doesn't need to lie, because he wanted to make his outrageous lies become true. That was the whole, he wanted to be a brave warrior of the sea, or he was a brave warrior of the sea, was the lie, and now he's making it true, so I like that little advancement.
Yeah.
I think that's the only other one I had to mention, because, like, Brook beating Zio is cool. He's got ice powers now because of his cold soul. Chopper is a monster. Zoro is strong and cool. Frankie has a robot that he doesn't use. But yeah, I already mentioned a lot of those, so... yep. Good shit. Okay, so yeah, we skipped around a bit, but they managed to... the Straw Hats defeated the lieutenants. Luffy, and Shirahoshi stopped Hody and Noah, and Fishman Island saved, and everything's good, except Luffy is dying.
Luffy, no!
Though there was a little bit, so there we see Roger, because the Sea Kings are talking, and I already talked about some of the things I mentioned before, but, they're like, huh, Luffy, the one with the hat seemed to notice our voices. Did that happen before? Oh yeah, with Gold Roger. He seemed to know. So, well, I want to point that out, because if you remember back on Sabaody, Rayleigh said, Roger could hear the voices of all things. That is all. And that is all I wanted to say. Just pointing that out. Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes back to older ideas too, where it's like I remember Ani left a comment on the Skypiea video talking about, like, contrasting Eneru and Luffy, where it's like Eneru, he heard all the voices of Skypiea, but he didn't listen because he was putting himself above them as a god. But, like, especially in Alabasta, Luffy told Vivi, I can hear you. Luffy hears everything. He hears everyone out. So yeah, it's and that's why he has that ability to hear all things. So yeah, not neat. But yeah, the fighting's cooled down. Hody and all his men are captured, but Luffy is bleeding to death. And he needs a blood transfusion, but none of the other Straw Hats have the same blood type. So, and then we get a great moment where Jinbei, the Fishman, decides, he says, use my blood.
But isn't that against the law? And then course, he's like, I'm a pirate.
Yes.
Something about it.
Yes. It's so good. And they, the narrow tube, it's too narrow to call a road, but it is, the road toward the sun that the Fishmen are looking for, the path to, their freedom, basically. And the fact, that red blood, they're going against the system. So I guess in that way, yeah, Otohime might be wrong. So, again, there's aspects to this that haven't been resolved yet. Reverie. That has been mentioned, like, if you've been paying attention to the cover story, we're seeing, like, all the characters from this story, like, as they are now after the time skip. And if you on the VV ones, the Alabasta ones, it's like there's one of, like, Chaka and Pell who are getting their clothes sized fit, and it's like, oh, they're going to Reverie, which is the meeting of kings. So so Vivi's gonna be there. And but that's coming up soon, and the whole thing, the Fishmen, they wanted to go to the Reverie so they could talk about the their moving to the surface. So it's like so not all of these ideas have been resolved yet. But so now, like, because we even mentioned systemic racism back on Sabaody episode, and so now I'm kind of curious as to how that will be going forward, because yeah, Otohime, she's kind of like Nami trying to save Kami in the auction hall. She's in in the basest sense of that, she's trying to work within the system, and but it hasn't been resolved yet, because Tiger went against the system, and here they are, like, finding their freedom by going against the system. They're going against that law because they're outlaws. So yeah, that's interesting, and I want to see where that goes in the future. Like, what is the true path for the Fishmen to go towards the sun? Will it be following the system or going against the system? Like, going by how One Piece was worked so far, I would assume going against the system. That's interesting. I don't know. because that's what Hody was doing. So I'm wondering exactly how what is that path exactly. So yeah, but everything winds down. There's a big old party. Always gotta love the parties. Everyone's having fun. Fishman fun. Oh, and then we get a bit of a plot thing. Oh, yeah, actually, we get a lot of that in between arc sort of information. Because Robin talks to Neptune about Joy Boy, who was writing an apology to the Fishman for some reason. And Neptune talks about Poseidon, and we get the name drop for Shirahoshi's ability and the fact that she's an ancient weapon. So yeah. Oh, and we also found out about Blackbeard and the admirals. I don't know, did you have any thoughts on all these information?
Yeah, like Akainu had to fight Aokiji and is now the fleet admiral of the navy. So that's a thing.
Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed was that
Oh, also I guess perhaps big. Well, I don't want to say bigger than that, but like Aokiji is no longer with the Marines. So
yes, that's pretty big. Yeah.
Aokiji confirmed for Straw Hat member.
Maybe we'll find out. Though what I thought was interesting is because like Jinbei talks about how like because Aokiji was supported by like Sengoku and a lot of other Marines, but Akainu was supported by the world government, the ones above, the heads. So like which furthers my sort of insistence that Akainu is the system, and he's ultimately the one who wins. He's the absolute justice. He's the ideal Marine in the eyes of the government. So and he's the one who wins. Like Aokiji's more of a human being. Like he's he has doubts about following the rules, but of course he ends up. How can a Marine who doubts being a Marine become fleet admiral in One Piece? In One Piece, where your strength is the strength of your ideals. Yeah.
It was also kind of fitting that like Sengoku was the one who like recommended him. So it's almost like this is good. I would expect like this is going to be a bit of a changing of this. Well, I don't necessarily want to say like changing of the system, but like. Things are probably going to be, because it's Akainu, things are probably going to be a bit more strict, a bit more aggressive, maybe. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for.
Well, like Jinbei even says that now he's Fleet Admiral Sakazuki. Because he's not an admiral, he doesn't have a cool code name anymore. But because he moved Marineford into the New World. Like we found out back on Sabaody, Nami was hearing about it, and he swapped Marineford with G1 because which made Sabaody more lawless because now it has even less Marine presence. But now now Marine headquarters is in the New World because that's where Akainu or Sakazuki. Damn it, I fucked up. Even after correcting myself and saying the truth, I fucked up. But yes, because he's ready to fight those pirates in the New World, the emperors and whatever. And speaking of emperors, Blackbeard is considered one of them now. Motherfucker. I mean, he said this was his era, and he's not wrong. Or he's trying not to be wrong at least, because he surpassed because I remember the elders said like Marco was also a potential candidate, but it seems like Blackbeard won out over anyone else. Even the supernovas are out there causing shit.
Even Buggy the clown.
Yes, Buggy the Clown is out there causing shit, of course. Sorry. I just thought it was
I did like the bit of silence after I said that.
Yep. Oh yeah, and there's a bit of a thing with Caribou, who he tries to steal Shirahoshi and a treasure.
Yeah, that's kind of funny because like Caribou like shows up at the beginning of the arc and then it's just like absent for most of it and then comes back at the end.
Yeah, he's just going around stealing shit and he's like, oh boy, treasure. And then he tries to steal Mermaid Princess. But yeah, and of course I do like the sort of like where Luffy knocks out Caribou and you sort of see like the palace and he's like falling down to Fishman Island, and then Nami does the same thing with Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, so you see the 3 dots falling out of the palace. That was good. And of course they go down and immediately just destroy Caribou again. But they got the treasure back, which becomes important because they run into some members of Big Mom's crew.
Oh no.
Yep. Because she needed some candy.
Oh yeah, because
the factory got destroyed.
Did we bring up that like Whitebeard used to like be in
Yes. Oh, I mentioned it.
Okay, I must have spaced out then.
Yeah, No, it's fine. And yeah, well, I mentioned it's Fishman Island is Big Mom's territory now, and she demands sweets. And of course, we even see the factory get destroyed by Dharma during after the flashback. And we even get a brief glimpse to Big Mom on. Oh, they name drop it, Whole Cake Island, which is literally an island that is whole cakes. And she eats one of her fucking minions because she's like, oh man, treats from Fishman Island. And he's like, man, we can't wait either. And she's like, okay, you can wait for the party inside my stomach. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh, God.
Too bad Whole Cake Island will never come up again. Too bad Big Mom will never come up
nope.
again.
Wait. You're not supposed to know things. You're not supposed to know things, Mathwiz. You're cheating. Oh, man. So anyway, but they do resolve the Big Mom situation. I love how Luffy just like commandeers the snail, and he's just like, "Hey, is this Big Mom? I'm Luffy. I'm becoming Pirate King." Like he's just fucking like he did that on the after Impel Down 2. He's just like, "Hello, this is Luffy, future King of the Pirates." Like, that's just how he introduces himself. I love him. Oh man, and he even picks a fight with Big Mom to try and keep her off from destroying Fishman Island, and they of course give up the treasure. Which there's a bit of a quirk with the treasure because the Tamatabaco's there and it's got a bomb in it. I love Neptune and the Minister's reaction to that. They're just like shitting their fucking pants because they just gave a bomb to Big Mom, the Emperor, and it's
so gonna fall back on Luffy. They're gonna get framed for it. It's fine.
Oh man,
what could possibly go wrong?
God. So yeah, we get a bit of a glimpse to one of your favorites,
Smoker.
Yeah, Smoker and Tashigi. They're G5 Marines. They're kicking ass. They're like commenting on all the pirates coming up because everyone freed from Hody is like, fuck this, we're getting out of here. And they run into Smoker, and he's like, what the fuck's going on? Why are there so many pirates? And of course, it's Luffy's involved.
Yeah, I
right?
like how they didn't even really have to tell him. Like they said it, but Smoker's like, oh, I already knew it's him. Who else could it be?
Of course it's... Right. Well, because he would have heard about the incident on Subodhi. So he's probably been looking out. That's probably why he's camping. He's like a Call of Duty player. He's just camping there for Luffy. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you, Straw Hat. I'm going to get you. Because he wants to capture Luffy. He wants to make up for that failure on Locktown so long ago.
When I was reading this and I saw the volume cover with Smoker on, I was like, yes. My boy.
Oh, that's right. The volume covers risk spoiling you a little bit to arcs you haven't read yet. But luckily we haven't had that happen. Well,
I mean, what's happening?
Well, because they like to tease the.
Well, I mean, what's happening right now is like when
sometimes.
I'm reading it, like I'll see the volume cover and then like it'll be addressed in that volume, obviously.
Right. Oh, that's true of normal volumes. That's fair. Oh man, because I was reading a manga called Kingdom, and there's one volume cover that has like a character holding another important character who's covered in blood and not moving. It looks like is slumping in the other one's arms, and I'm like, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, it's not like I'm going ahead and like looking at all the volume covers to see like, oh, what happens here? That
would be risky. Yes, that would be definitely risky.
Which is why I'm not doing it.
Especially because like, well, even like with this example, like this is, if you looked at this before, reading the Fishman Island New World, like you see this is a character, this is our first time seeing him after 2 years, so it's like but like we do see him here, still smoke. He's only smoking 2 cigars. He hasn't added a third one even though 2 years have passed. Because it's a time skip. Everyone gets bigger and more. Anyway, so yeah. They learn a new mechanic with the New World about the compass and how it now can lock onto 3 islands. The one that shakes more is more dangerous. And Luffy's like, oh, hey, that middle island, that one's shaking a lot. I bet that's really cool. Fucking Luffy.
Nami and Usopp are there. They're just like, no, he found out.
Poor souls. He didn't even really find out. He just saw that it was shaking and was like, neat. He doesn't even know. Oh, man.
I like how Nami was like trying to argue with him, like I'm the navigator, we're not going there. He's like, but I'm the captain. And then like the other characters are like, please, captain, listen to the navigator.
He is the captain. He's got the final word. But yeah, they finally head out from Fishman Island. Shirahoshi wants to go to a real forest with real trees on the surface, and Luffy makes a promise that if they meet again, they will go, and they do the pinky swear just like they did with Otohime.
I love how like Luffy wraps his arm around her giant pinky.
Yes, no, it's just his pinky. Yeah,
okay, well, it was his pinky.
He only wrapped his pinky. Yeah, but it's because he's rubber and he's good. Oh man, and everyone's like, we want the hero hat. Oh man, because I mentioned that earlier. Oh, it's so good. And then then they start to surface. They're going. Well, it's funny. After they mention the hero hat, we get a bit of Shanks. Giving. Well, I like how it's the panel is like framed from Luffy's perspective, like looking at Shanks. Like it's like Shanks is putting the hat on his head, and so normally we see it from the side. I'm pretty sure. Like that's always where the image, especially in like the anime and stuff, when they call back to it, it's always from the side. But it's neat to see the panel from the front where Luffy was looking. That's cool. And then but yeah, they're going up to the new world. They're halfway there. That's Fishman Island.
I'm kind of curious because you had said like people consider this to be like one of the worst arcs in One Piece. How was like the anime pacing this out? Like, was the anime pacing also probably harming it?
The anime was. It wasn't the worst the anime got, but it was
like,
bad.
Is this at the point where we're kind of like getting out of the terrible anime pacing? Like it's getting a little better, or no?
No,
or it hasn't gotten there yet.
That would be like next time we're starting the saga called Dressrosa. After that saga is about where the anime started getting its shit together, basically.
Oh, okay.
The next saga is also 150 chapters long, so that's how much material the anime has to cover before it starts to stop being that slow as shit. Because I definitely watched some of it and it was a little painful. So it's like, and again, I also mentioned earlier how like people were also reading it weekly for the first time because they were just picking up the series, and the war was really hype, and it's hard to live up to that. Like I do. See, it's like how I'd kind of rank them now is like Enies Lobby, that whole saga, like Water 7 and Davy Backfight, that I put as about equal to the Paramount War because they're both really good and I can't decide. Then under that, I would put Skypiea. Like I kind of like, I'm taking my older feelings of Skypiea into account, and that's about equal to like Fishman Island rereading it now. Like that's my top 4 arcs basically is the the Water 7 saga, Paramount War, the Skypiea, and Jaya like as a saga, and Fishman Island. Like Fishman Island I really liked. And yeah, I already want to reread it in case to talk, potential video. So it's like God, it's a good arc. I like it a lot.
I don't quite know where I put Fishman Island. I've been kind of like I like it more than Skypiea definitely, but I'm kind of like floating around like is it better than it like still, Thriller Bark?
Yeah. No, I understand but Thriller Bark is probably my 5th favorite arc, so it's also top 5, but it's also really good. And Alabasta was good, but you haven't read it in a while, and you probably appreciate it more with new context and certain ideas in the story. I don't know. It's like One Piece. That's the thing about One Piece is it's so big, and it's also still ongoing. Is that like every time I go back to it, I learn something new. I mean, that's also true of like a lot of things, but with One Piece, it's so big that it's always feels fresh to me because it's. Like, how long has it been? It's been, like over half a year, or around half a year since we started. And we're only 15 episodes in out of 21. I mean, hiatuses aren't helping. We're trying to go faster at times, too.
Well, I mean, between the 1 week that we missed, and then the 3 weeks we did the war back-to-back, and then, the gap week between this, I think we're still kind of on schedule, I think. I think it all evens out.
Yeah, like, actually, Actually, let me check. Oh, yeah, we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule because I wrote out a One Piece schedule. I wrote it for Bleach too during Bleach, sort of like I guess I wrote it back in April, so almost a year ago, and I just started charting out like where are we going to end, like where would we be if we did it every 2 weeks, and I didn't, and so according to that, without that's no breaks, no change. Well, okay, Bleach was a little weird because we were doing it differently to account for anime. That's why I did this in the first place, to account for Anime Expo. That's right. And so if we had followed it, today we would actually be recording the Paramount War episode 15 or episode 14, and we wouldn't record Fishman Island until 2 weeks later. So we're 2 weeks ahead of schedule according to this. So sorry about the hiatus, but we're actually doing pretty all right considering we're supposed to only do 1 episode every 2 weeks. Because again, we did Fishman Island, or not the Paramount War and Enies Lobby all there was episodes squished together 1 week after the other. So yeah, I'd say we're doing all right.
We will be quote unquote catching up to One Piece this year at the very least, and then we'll get to move on to other stuff.
Yes. mysterious things that will be I'm going to, well, because there's 5 episodes left. There's 3 for the Dressrosa saga, and then 2 for the redacted saga that Mathwiz isn't supposed to know about yet. Even though it's written in our personal document of like all the series that we have. So I fucked up there. But yeah, so it's like that's 5 episodes, and we're going to reveal the series and make the vote on the last episode of this next saga we are reading next time. That next saga being, the arc is Punk Hazard. It sounds fun, doesn't it? Hazard. It's got hazard right there in the title. That means fun in French. I made that up. Chapters 654 to 699. So that's it's a little bit less than this time, but it's One Piece. We talked about this one for including rest breaks, 3 hours and 45 minutes. The actual podcast will be less than that. Thankfully, but still over 3 hours for, holy shit, this is our longest discussion in a while. Maybe, is it our longest One Piece one? Maybe, because I've been trying to keep it short.
Over
but here
3 hours for the worst arc in One Piece. Imagine what we'll have to say about the good stuff.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, actually double checking, like, this is longer than the Baradier Arlong one, which was up until now our longest One Piece episode. Like, obviously we had longer ones in Naruto. Like, Naruto's when we were like, okay, let's just read it, and it's like, holy fuck, I don't want to do a 4-hour discussion again. And so luckily Bleach was short because we were reading the series as we went, so we had less context. So, and this one scheduling things have kept for some shorter episodes. Anyway, long episode. Hopefully you enjoy it despite the wait. Things happened. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.